Make sure this is turned off. It is. Good evening. Good evening. I will now call the March 10th, 2026 meeting of the Ben Lapine School Board of Directors to order. I would like to introduce our participants this evening. My immediate left, Vice Chair Amy Tatum, Directors Cameron Fisher, Keena Chadwick, Ross Tomlin, Jen Lynch, Shirley Olson. To my immediate right, Deputy Superintendent Dr. Lisa Burke, Board Clerk Janet Bojanowski, and I am Marcus LeGrand, the Chair of the Board. We also have student representatives joining us this evening. Will you please introduce yourself and include your school and what group you're representing?
Hi, my name is Anna Boudry, and I'm representing Ben High.
Hello, my name is Daisy, and I am representing Caldera, and I'm an 11th grader.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Farrell, and I'm representing Caldera.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it very, very much. In order to ensure safety and ability for the board to focus on business, we ask that all audience members here to the board meeting attending expectations. This includes being seated, and if you have no available seats, individual wait in the lobby till one is available. All right. And also, if there's people who want to come up, and if you are leaving, I know y'all like to kind of formulate out in the halls. If other people want to come up, I would ask if you can kind of get closer down to downstairs so you can definitely help them, allow them to be able to come up because they may have something else they want to talk to us about or be here with and listen on, okay? Sound like a plan? Sound like a plan? All right, let's come on, y'all. This is a back and forth every now and then. All right. All right. Will everyone please rise, remove your hats, and join us doing the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll now move to the agenda item number 3, review of the agenda. Dr. Burke, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Fellow board members, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, I would like to add a discussion about educational technology.
Oh, thank you, Director Tatum. And since we have that agenda item, okay, is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Director Tatum, and that was Director Fisher seconding it. Thank you very, very much. Now we have the motion. Any discussion? Do I want to add this to the agenda? Okay, we'll do that probably when we get to the discussion. And now I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? I believe the ayes have it, and we'll add it to the agenda. I think we'll add it to 11C. And that means if you want to hear about technology and us having discussion, you're going to have to wait till we get to that point. And that's going to probably be about 7:30-ish, so don't leave if you want to hear us have that conversation. And you can go watch the recording if it's not, all right? Cool? Just want to make sure y'all know when that's coming. So don't abandon if you really care. All right, so just want to make sure you know. And now we'll turn it over to Dr. Burke to join us through presentation on the Champion for Students Award. The floor is yours, Dr. Burke.
All right. I would love to have Kelly Sproba join us up here. Thanks, Kelly. Everybody give Kelly a round of applause. Okay. Hi. Hi. Long time no see. So while Kelly stands up here, I'm going to talk about her a little bit. So I'm honored to present the Champion for Students Award to a loved member of the Lava Ridge Elementary community, learning specialist Kelly Sproba. She's been with Ben Lapine Schools for more than 10 years, working at Three Rivers, Buckingham, and currently at Lava Ridge. Her nomination came from Sarah Young, Director of Student Services. Sarah shared, Kelly embodies the kind of special education teacher who centers a team with expertise and heart. She approaches every challenge with a solutions-oriented mindset, consistently asking, what will it take? And then following through. Families know her as a steady, compassionate advocate who listens deeply, communicates clearly, and walks beside them through every step of the process. Lava Ridge Principal Gary DeFrank also had this to say about Kelly. Kelly is the special education teacher who has earned her place at the top of her profession through unwavering dedication and care for her students. Her greatest strength lies in the powerful relationships she builds with each student. She knows them deeply and works tirelessly to help them achieve their goals. Throughout her day, Kelly provides emotional and behavioral support to students with regulation needs while also leading small group instruction in reading and math. Despite an already overflowing schedule, Kelly recently spent a day learning from a math coach to deepen her understanding of the new math curriculum, a professional investment made within her already packed day. Kelly's commitment to continuous growth and her student-centered approach exemplify the excellence that defines a truly exceptional teacher. So, Kelly, now, in recognition of your expertise, collaboration, and dedication to students, you embody the very best of special education. You anchor your team with both skill and heart, partnering seamlessly with colleagues to create inclusive, meaningful learning experiences tailored to each student's strengths and need. With a proactive, solutions-driven mindset, you turn thoughtful plans into meaningful support for both students and families. Your compassionate advocacy and steadfast commitment make you an invaluable member of the Lava Ridge Elementary School community. Ben Lapine Schools is proud to honor you as a true champion for students. All right, so wait, you got to stay up here. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Bring it on back. Okay, who's supporting Kelly here? Come on up. Come on.
There we go.
Best teacher ever. Let's go. Okay, come on up. We've got a couple of pictures to take.
These are my old team.
Awesome. Come on up here. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations, Kelly.
Thank you, Dr. Burke, and congratulations. And now we'll hear from our student representatives.
Hello, my name is Daisy, and I'm a junior at Caldera High School.
Hi, I'm Kelsey, and I'm also a junior at Caldera High School.
Hi, my name's Anna, and I'm a sophomore at Ben High School. Before we begin, we would like to thank the board members for giving us the opportunity to speak and represent the Student Voice Council. At our most recent Student Voice Council meeting on March 3rd, we had the opportunity to meet with Stephen Duvall to reflect on how the first semester has gone with the implementation of standards-based instruction and grading. During our 45-minute conversation, we discussed some of the early data and shared perspectives about how the system is working so far. Director Duvall shared that a survey was sent to approximately 200 early adopter teachers to gather feedback on their experiences with the new grading system.
Mr. Duvall also explained that AP classes will continue to use the standards provided by the College Board as the framework for those courses. He shared that conversations have also taken place with teachers who teach dual enrollment classes through COCC. At the same time, some teachers we have spoken to at our school have shared different perspectives about how the grading system connects to college preparation. Hearing these different viewpoints has helped us better understand that there are still ongoing conversations about how to best support students as they transition to college.
During our conversation, Mr. Duvall invited the Student Voice Council to share thoughts about whether a 0.5 grade level should be added within the 4-point scale. He shared that the teachers who provided feedback were evenly split on this question, so he wanted to hear student perspectives as well. We appreciated the opportunity to be a part of that conversation. Within CVC, there were a variety of perspectives. Some students felt like it might result in more A's, while others thought teachers might adjust expectations for a 4. Overall, it led to a thoughtful discussion, and we plan to continue talking about it in future meetings and sharing our input with the district. Grades can be a source of stress for many students, and for some students, the transition to a new grading system has added additional uncertainty. Part of this may simply be adjusted to the system that is new for both students and teachers. We recognize that communication during this early implementation year is evolving. We appreciate that Director Duvall and the district are continuing to review feedback and include students in these conversations as the system develops.
Director Duval also shared that the district is reviewing the decaying average used in the grading system and plans to adjust it so that it has a slightly smaller impact on overall grades. We appreciate that student feedback has been considered in these decisions, and it is encouraging to see decision makers listening to students' perspectives. We are still experiencing inconsistent application of this system, and we are hoping that in year one of this implementation next year, this will be improved from the admin, teacher, and student levels.
After our conversation with Mr. Duval, we transitioned into updates from our Student Voice Council focus groups. Recently, Student Voice Council created smaller groups that focus on specific topics. As our meeting came to a close, each group shared what they had been working on over the past month. The School to Career Readiness group, which I am a part of, is currently working on developing 2 scholarships, one for students in Bend and one for students in South County. We are beginning to reach out to local businesses to explore possible funding opportunities. We are also discussing the possibility of creating a Canvas course that could serve as a hub for resources related to future planning, district events, and life and career readiness opportunities. In addition, we wanted to share that there will be a life and career readiness night on April 30th at Caldera High School at 7 p.m. Our group hopes to share more about our work at the May school board meeting.
The sustainability and mental health groups are both continuing to develop projects that are still in the planning stages. The School and Climate Belonging group, which I'm a part of, is working on creating a survey to better understand how students are feeling about the school environments and what areas should be improved. Students from Lapine are also working on gathering information related to opportunities and resources available across schools. They recently met with a group of students to discuss topics such as classes, sport opportunities, and travel resources. Their goal is to better understand differences that may exist and to share their findings with the board, hopefully at the May meeting. Thank you again for taking time to listen on our updates and for considering the student perspective. If you have any questions, we are happy to answer them.
Directors, first and foremost, students, thank you very much for the report. We appreciate it. To give everyone a little bit more information, we have not totally implemented standard grading over the whole district. That will happen this fall. We only got 60%. So when you hear them say implementation of it is not completely done, and we're in the process of getting those things taken care of, just to let y'all know that information. So not thinking, oh, they already did it. No, we're still working on that process. So I just want to let y'all know that information. Thank you. Directors, do you have any questions?
Thank you all. I do have a question about the the climate belonging survey. Will you all be also leveraging results that were received from the Youth Truth survey?
We have not talked about that, and I'm speaking on more of a personal level. We recently just got the group starting, so that's something that we want to begin doing. We were considering to do like a Google form to ask in the survey what students are looking for or what they feel happy with right now currently at school. But once we have more of a clear idea on that, we'll let you know as soon as possible. Yeah.
So students, I would just weigh in and say that your building leader, your building principal and administrators have access to the newest information from Youth Truth that has both your voice as well as family voice included. So I would encourage you to reach out to them to just say, hey, can we see those data? Can we utilize those as we move forward?
Any additional questions, directors? Thank you very much. And as usual, if you have any questions about the things we're talking about, we may even come to you when we have a discussion on other things as well. All right? Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. And now we're going to be moving to public comment. Before we move to public comment, I have something short, quickly read so we can definitely understand how public comment works. The board and district leadership value communication from students, families, staff, and community members as it helps to guide the work of Bend Lapine schools. Public comment is just one of those many avenues available to ensure this connection. Members of the public may always submit thoughts, questions, and concerns to the board via email as well as in writing. Individual board members also make themselves available for phone, video, and in-person conversations. This said, I want to remind the public that while this is a meeting of the board of directors that takes place in public, it is not a meeting with the public. It is a meeting of the board of directors to conduct district business. As such, the board will now not respond to public comment made during tonight's meeting. Instead, issues may be recorded and referred to the personal staff person to follow up with you. So you should maybe hearing something back or even an email. We will now open up for public comment. Our policy is typically allows up to 2 minutes per speaker until the time cap has been reached for the agendized item. A timer is provided on the large screen to our virtual attendees to ensure every speaker receives updates during the presentation on the remaining time. If the speaker goes over time, or if the speaker's message is not in adherence with our policy, for example, being personally directed, abusive, discriminatory, repetitive, or off topic, I may ask the speaker to cease and terminate their speaking privileges to address the board. At this time, we will be hearing from Lisa Hovey. Is there a Lisa Hovey? Lisa, how you doing today? Is that correct, your last name? Hovey, okay. But my name is actually Amanda Dayton. Okay. There's 3 of us speaking together. So okay. I was gonna say, is it all the same topic? It is the same topic, but we all have different messages. You have different messages or don't? It is the same topic, but we're saying different things. Okay, 2 minutes, let's get it. Yeah, I get it, yeah. Yeah, they'll come up, we got it, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Amanda Dayton. I have children in both middle and elementary school here in BLS. And I want to begin by sharing some important news. After working with Representative Emerson Levy and the Oregon Health Authority, we have recently learned that OHA is lowering its recommended air quality index threshold for keeping students indoors from 200 to 150. The agency plans to communicate this change to the Oregon Department of Education and then announce it publicly before June of this year. We want to share this update with you tonight so this district can begin preparing for how this change will affect operations in our schools. Sadly, every fall brings the same concern for many families, the impact wildfire smoke has on our health. No one wants this smoke, but we have a responsibility to reduce the children's exposure when conditions become unhealthy. And that's why I started the parent group Clean Air at Schools, Ben Lapine. Our goal has been simple: align the district's policies with the best available science and practices. Other Western states, including California, Washington, Utah, Montana, Colorado, and Idaho, already use an AQI threshold of 150 to keep students indoors. When we previously met with district leaders, we were told the district would not change its policy because it must follow OHA's guidance. So now that OHA is updating that guidance, we hope that BLS will move quickly to align with it. At that same meeting, OHA and Deschutes County Public Health offered the district free air quality monitors for every school. And you need to know that that offer was declined due to cybersecurity concerns, despite the fact that these monitors are widely used by schools across the country with workable solutions in place. Wildfire smoke is becoming a recurrent part of life in Central Oregon, and change is no longer optional. It is essential to protecting health. So thank you for your time and for your commitment to our students. We look forward to working with the district to ensure BLS becomes a leader in protecting kids from wildfire smoke.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dayton, I appreciate it very much.
Can I hand these to you?
Just put it right here on the end, we'll take it. Thank you very much for the information, we appreciate it. And actually, I received the same information. I'm on the racial and social justice and equity thing for the state, so I get the information as well, so I have it. Thank you. All right, next person we were able to listen to is Brian Cappy. I won't. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, appreciate it. Hi, Brian, how are we doing today?
Hi, Marcus. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Actually didn't think I would be speaking today, so I'll go quickly through this. My name is Brian Cappy. I'm a graduate of Buckingham High Desert and Bend Senior High. My mother, Patricia, was elected to this school board in 1999. My wife was born at St. Charles, and I have 2 kids in Ben Lapine schools, and 1 more on the way. I'm currently employed by an AI training data company out of Silicon Valley. Before that, I led 2 global business development teams at Google, mainly focused on AI training and nascent development. Care deeply about this community and our children. Well, I appreciate the district's response to the parent letter that was discussed last month. It leaves much to be desired. I'm going to skip around a little bit here because this is too long. I'm on the IT stakeholder group meeting, and we previously requested data about the efficacy of the ed tech that we use. The results that we were shown were underwhelming at best. presented to us through the lens of Dreambox. Now, the effect sizes were small, and in fact, in 5th grade, the effect size of the efficacy of this dropped to 0. Compare this to an impact of high tutoring, which yields an effect size of about 0.4, 4 times larger. It begs the question of what are we doing, and are we leaving on the table by not pursuing higher impact interventions? Now, this isn't just a matter of pedagogical preference, it's a matter of policy compliance, and your district's own executive limitations are very clear on this. In fact, I encourage you to look at EL 4.7 and EL 4.1, ensuring that hardware and software technology is regularly measured, evaluated, and modified as necessary to ensure continuing effectiveness. To my knowledge, this is not yet happening today. Please, urgently, implement a real plan to remove student-facing generative AI, quantify total student device usage and make this data available to parents, create an EdTech opt-out policy, make technology decisions using data, and immediately commission a study by an independent body to evaluate the current
Thank you, Brian.
use and
Appreciate it very
efficacy
much.
of EdTech.
Next speaker, please. Next person is going to be, thank you very much, is Carly Braun. Is it Carly Braun or Braun? Okay, I got it. Thank you for Matt. Thanks, Janet, for that. Appreciate it. Where's the student here? Yes, what that. Lena Field. Lena, is it Lena? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Hey, Lena, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Heck yeah. Hold on, let me just pull this up.
Let me know when you're ready.
Hey, my name is Lena Field, as you just heard, and I'm a freshman at Bend High. I'm here to talk about freshmen volunteering for outdoor school. As a 5th grader, there was no one I looked up to more than my camp counselors. In a world that was full of the stress and anxiety that came with everyday life, camp was a reprieve where I could just relax. And my counselors were a huge part of that. There was nothing they expected of me beyond being a decent human. It was a space for me to grow without fear of judgment, and that has made a huge impact on who I am sitting before you today. And as a CIT over this past summer, I realized that the feeling of community was even stronger when you were in a position to offer support. It was really cathartic to be able to see my campers blossom. They went from nervous to sing too loudly at campfire to laughing with their friends at carnival. There was something about camp that encouraged them to come out of their shells, something that I and many others have also experienced. I couldn't wait to be at outdoor school and be for those kids what counselors like Orion and Rue had once been for me. And then I realized that that wouldn't be possible. We're looking to open a dialogue with Katie Legacy so we can work towards reinstating a sacred freshman year tradition. We would love to hear some of the reasoning behind your decision and address any concerns you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lena. Appreciate it very, very much. Next, Larry Jensen.
Good evening. Thank you.
Hey.
As you just stated, my name is Larry Jensen. I am a current parent of 2 graduates from the Bend Pine schools. I have a son in high school at Mountain View and another son at Skyview Middle School. I'm an OSU graduate in Tourism, Recreation, Adventure Leadership, specialty in Adventure Leadership Education. And I'm currently a master's student at Prescott University, pursuing my master's degree in the same. As part of my capstone project, I am currently working on developing an outdoor leadership education curriculum for 11th and 12th grade students.
Okay.
Pardon me. This project is part of my capstone and it's going towards my graduation. This is my big final that I'm doing here. What I'm here tonight is I'm looking for assistance from the board to be able to get a outdoor leadership curriculum feasibility survey out to the members of the board and out to the parents of Bend Pine High School. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Larry, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And when you get a chance, I definitely want to probably talk to the people over at COCC because they have the outdoor program, how y'all can link that together as well. All right. Next on our agenda, Megan Beck. Hi, Megan.
Hi, thank you for having me. All right, good evening. I am a parent of a second grader and a rising kindergartner here in Bend. I also have an 18-year-old son in college, so I'm old enough to remember when elementary education actually delivered better math and reading outcomes without iPads. 1 month ago, parents presented this board with a letter signed by over 1,100 people representing every school in this district asking for 7 specific actions on technology. The district's response addressed 1 of 7, partially with no clear next steps. I was surprised to read that we apparently believe it's our jobs to give kids as young as 8 AI chatbots to make them workforce ready. I'm a professional researcher who uses AI every day, and I can tell you it's useless if you can't assess the value of what it gives you. That's what foundational schools are about, foundational skills are about, and that's what we want our schools to focus on. After the last meeting, I also looked into your AI policy. The rollout of Magic School's Raina chatbot to students as young as 8 appears to have violated your own policy in 2 specific ways. There was no approval process, and there was no parent notification given. Both were explicitly required. I have a copy right here with the highlighted sentences that were ignored. It's a governance issue, and I really hope that the board will look into this. The bigger problem I want to step back and say is this. How many of us in this room have tried to do focused work on an internet-connected device and had to fight off constant distractions? And yet we expect our kids as young as 5 to learn that way. Oregon's education spending has risen nearly 80% since 2013, while reading and math scores have fallen. We rank 48th in 4th grade math. The burden of proof should be on the district to show that technology investment is actually helping our kids learn. Meanwhile, we've lost 1,500 students since 2019 to homeschooling, private options, absenteeism. Our concerns here are not a side issue. They're part of the declining trust that we're seeing in our public schools. And I personally want to see that reversed. I believe deeply in our public schools and the work that you all do. So I'm asking this board to develop an evidence-based technology policy with real accountability. And by the next meeting, share some next steps and concrete actions that we're going to take. We're here to help as a community. Thank you.
Point of clarification, we did go through a process. We went through a 3-year process of looking at the AI pieces, so let you know that is an incorrect statement on that part, so to let you know we did not go against the policy, just to give you that clarification. And I think that's what we're going to clear up in some of the discussions that we're going to have later and when we talk about policy, all right? Just want to make sure we're clear on that. Thank you. All right, next. Alison Estes, excuse me. I'm one more after this. Okay.
I'm Allison. I hold a master's in teaching. I'm a former 1st grade teacher, and I currently have a kindergartner. I also read the board's response regarding educational technology, but as a volunteer weekly, I hear and see a profound disconnect between policy and reality. We're seeing a consistent increase in total screen time, not just through iPads, but through a variety of digital tools used from everything from brain breaks to assessments. And the current one-to-one saturation doesn't just supplement instruction, which is a pedagogical crisis, in my opinion. It also creates a baseline of digital dependency starting at the age of 5 that cannot be easily reversed. The response mentions that moving away from one-to-one usage in K through 2 will take time, and I'm here to ask why. It doesn't require a multi-year IT strategy to be removed, and waiting for a planned rollout while 60% of our students are failing at math isn't prudence, it's negligence. You also cited research, which warns that gaming is the highest risk behavior for a child's development, and what is being implemented is a direct contradiction of that research. These apps are almost entirely gamified. My son comes home and tells me about the games he played on his iPad almost every day. He's 5. Independent data from the PARC Consortium which covers millions of students, proves that device itself is an obstacle. K through 8 students consistently score lower on digital exams than paper ones due to cognitive overload. And we aren't just losing in assessments, we're losing our children's ability to focus, regulate emotions, and develop deep literacy. The K through 12 brain is in a critical window of development. To me, this is a child safety issue. In other industries, this type of decline would ignite immediate audits and terminations. Yet here, reading and math proficiency has plummeted by 15 and 16 points respectively, which started before the pandemic. And our response is preliminary steps. How can the output of our students be held in such low regard that a decade of failing grades doesn't trigger immediate change? By 3rd grade, students shift from learning to read to reading to learn, and this structure is handicapping that bridge. Please honor the science, invest in the people who teach, not the platforms that distract.
And finally, Brandon Beaufort with the French last name.
Thanks so much. My name is Brendan Buffard. I'm a parent of 2 children in the district, 4th and 6th graders. I'm also a staff attorney at Fair Play, a national nonprofit focused on children's online safety and privacy, where I lead our policy on generative AI. I'm also the co-author of the People First AI chatbot bill, which has been introduced in 7 states so far this year, 3 more coming soon. I'm intimately aware of the methods that tech companies use to sell their products to schools, as well as the harm that ed tech is causing children and family. Just last week, I was in Washington, D.C. with a group of 15 families whose children died from online harms. So I'm here tonight for 3 reasons. To voice my strongest concern about how the district is approaching educational technology, to ask the board to take strong leadership role in addressing the issues raised in the parent letter submitted last month, and to ask that the board take the risks associated with student-facing generative AI very seriously by removing Magic School and other Gen AI platforms from student devices immediately. 1 month ago, more than 1,100 students were forced to bring their concerns to this board about educational technology in the form of a sign-on letter because years of inaction from the district actively put our children's safety and learning at risk. In response, we received a letter from the district essentially telling us parents, nothing to see here. Let me be blunt. If the district were properly evaluating how it spends taxpayer money on ed tech, we would not have thousands of parents raising concerns about declining academic performance, harmful content regularly appearing on school devices, and potentially dangerous Gen AI apps being introduced to our children without knowledge or input. I could spend my time up here going line by line through the district's response, pointing out mischaracterizations and factual inaccuracies, like how it cites a recent Brookings report on AI in education without mentioning that the very same report specifically concludes that schools should pause the rollout of Gen AI, just as parents have requested in our letter. Or how the district blows off recent media reports about its rollout of Magic School by, for some reason, arguing that the platform still includes a developmentally inappropriate and potentially dangerous anthropomorphic chatbot. We know that's why we want it off of our school devices. Instead, I just want the board to trust the lived experience of the parents in this district and the expertise of the professionals in this community, and work to get this right. And we're here to help if you'll listen to us. Thank you.
All right, we have a meeting to finish. All right, thank you all very much. Thank everyone for public comments. You would get all your information and you get your questions answered. But hopefully you'll stick around and actually hear us have the conversation about what we really do care about, which is technology in schools. Okay, so just want to make sure you understand that we do care. So hope you stick around for that conversation. Don't just leave now, okay? Stick around for the conversation, please. All right. Don't say you didn't know. Okay, all right. Okay. I will now move to approve the consent agenda.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Vice Chair Tatum. I do a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Tomlin. Appreciate it. Is there any discussion regarding the consent agenda? All right, no discussion. We'll now call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. The ayes have it. Appreciate it. And now we'll look at approval of the minutes. No, we don't have to approve them. That's right. There, let's go straight to the thing now. That's right. Okay. And now we will be actually meeting. Actually, we're going to go to adopt the policies. Cool. Nice. Dr. Burke, it's yours.
All right, in this month's consent for information, we have 3 policies that the district is adopting. ACAR, discrimination complaint procedures, that has been updated to align with OSBA policy and ODE civil rights guidance. ECACA-AP, radio frequency identification device, is a new district policy, again in alignment with current district practices and OSBA sample policy. The final policy, JGDAP, is around suspension. It has been updated to align with the appeals process with district best practice. The final document in the consent for information is follow-up to the public comment that was received at last month's board meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Burke. Appreciate it very much. Also in our board packet today, and you probably can find this information online as well, is our update on what came across in terms of board comment from our last meeting. Just want to let everyone know that information is out there and available. So if you didn't receive anything from our constituents here, please make sure that you let us know. All right. Now we're going to actually have Dan Emerson, our Chief Financial Officer, come up.
Oh, man, I wish, but Dan is ill this evening, and that illness has run through his family, so we're going to keep him out of here. And unfortunately, you all are stuck with me. So really, this is a resolution that is in regard to us receiving more money than we typically have related to donations that would go to student scholarships. So this often happens if somebody passes away, they might leave money in memoriam, but we do need a board resolution in order to have these $2,200 go to students.
I move to approve Resolution 2011, recognizing revenue and increasing enterprise and community services appropriations by $2,200 in the school year 2025-2020. Sorry, maybe I'm not reading that correctly. In the FY 2025-26 Ben Lapine School Board's budget as presented.
All right, thank you. Any discussion regarding this information? Oh, actually, before we do that, we have a second.
Second.
Thank you for the second, Ms. Olson. And now, do we have any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion, want to thank you. And now we're time for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, I believe the ayes have it. Thank you, Dr. Burke. Appreciate it very much. Now, we're going to turn it over to Dr. Burke again for the naming of our new choice option high school.
Yes, so this is brought to you after having been brought to you last month. If you recall, we brought forward to the board 3 potential names for the new choice high school that had gone through the committee, which started with about 74 ideas and sort of whittled down over time. And so over time, we landed on 3 options as Central Bend High School, Deschutes High School, and Deschutes River High School. And so tonight, we are asking the board to either move forward one of those names or make a suggestion as to the way in which we should move instead.
Directors, how you want to start this?
Did students, can students vote on this?
Students, families, and staff were all part of the process over a period of a month where these were narrowed down and kind of put into categories. And these are the 3 that were brought forward from that process.
I was going to say, Keena, I had asked at the last board meeting if students had a preference, and we were told that they did not.
And also remember, we do not have to accept these 3. We also can send it back and start it all over again.
Yeah, I don't think any of the board members, I don't want to speak for us, are super excited about any of these names, but we also want to honor the process.
I think that's accurate, and I will say too, the only public comment we received after those 3 were presented last month were, not in favor of any of the 3. But maybe there was more public, I don't know, we didn't receive any feedback from the public or students, except that they did not like the names.
Yeah, and I appreciate wanting a high school as a name and not wanting to be an academy. I think that's
that was
really,
very clear,
that's
yeah.
very clear. But when I hear Central Bend High School, I'm like, that's just confusing because we have Bend High. And then Deschutes High School, DHS, I don't know that that's on a sweatshirt, looks great. And Deschutes River High School, I think that's fine. I think we could make that work in terms of it's expeditionary learning. You're going on a journey down a river. But that's really the only thing I can say about that name. If we feel like we need to pick one, that would be.
I think all of us would really like something that the students are excited about.
Yeah,
I don't know how we get to that point.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And the other thing is that we are merging 2 very special programs that we have spent lots of time and money and effort to develop curriculum that fits particular kids' needs. And none of those 3 options seem to really point to what it's all about. So I would like to suggest that we send it back to the committee and to the administration to try and incorporate something special that the kids are excited about and that gives some kind of an indication of the program that will be available at that high school.
Director Olson, would you like to put that in a motion, please?
I would love to put that in a motion.
Thank
I
you
so
very much.
move.
Hold on, one, I think, Director.
I was just gonna say, can you also include like a vote from students at those two schools who will be attending this one school together? Like, to me, this should be their vote and not our vote.
I get it.
So I just want to add that.
Are we?
It has to be us, though. We have to.
We do have.
Yeah, we have to. We have to approve it.
But that would be an input.
Before we move to that, can we continue the discussion a bit?
Go.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Burke, with this last month, was it clear that the committee encompassed parents, students, teachers from both realms and Ben Tech?
Yes, that is accurate.
Okay, and just to remind me, I know it's a month ago, that process started back at the start of the school year?
No, that none of this started at the beginning of the school
Sorry,
year.
I'm sorry, the start of this 2026,
Yes,
excuse me.
yes, yeah.
Sorry.
So there were 4 times where student staff, this group met and kind of curated these names. I will just comment that the sort of specialness that you're noting was not of interest to the students. In fact, they wanted to make sure that they weren't seen as demonstrably different as other high schools. And so that was something that came out of this that I think initially there was an interest in that way, and that sort of changed over time.
Can I ask you, Dr. Burke, how many students were on that committee? Because I thought it was rather small with 40 total, if I'm remembering the numbers correctly.
It was smaller than that, actually. The number of students, I'm looking into the audience, Zach, Lakeisha. It's 8 students, okay.
Wait, 16 or 8? What are those fingers? 8. Okay.
They're not splitting the difference.
Okay.
Yeah, there were 8 students. And then in totality, I think the entire group represented about 16.
I guess I want to address the term specialness, and I understand that. I think maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, looking for something more unique as opposed to not necessarily, I mean, I think of Caldera, I think of Summit. I don't look at those as terms that may be connected to going back to Marshall or Ben Tech or Realms. I'm thinking more a little bit broader, and I guess I don't know how to put that in language, but something more unique than the two. I would really like to just delete DHS from the options, and then I think the other, I think they're pretty generic, but I also want to respect the process, but I'm curious, before we do jump into a vote, if, and I also want to empathize because people did put 4 meeting sessions into this, and probably a lot of thought. If they came up with 75 ideas, how feasible is it, Dr. Burke or anybody who can, give me an idea here, to revisit this in the next, after spring break in the next April, May, 2 months?
Yeah, anything is possible, and you all will make that decision. I mean, we will go back to the table if that is what your decision is. I think when we look at some of our counterparts in like Caldera and Summit, it's important to recognize that they had over a year where no students are there and they were just in planning. And all of this was part of that planning phase, that was what they were engaged in. We have a situation right now where we are making some changes with some dramatic timelines because of some constraints that we're feeling. And we also have 2 groups that have names that are dear to them. And so that has been kind of an added factor as we've moved through this process. So that's not to, I guess I'm not gonna answer directly your question, like can be done, can't be done. It absolutely can be done. But as you know, we're coming onto a new school year where excitement around being in a space is around, I would say, related more to like branding and kind of the cool swag that maybe you get by being part of a place. And so there is a timeline consideration, and that shouldn't stand in the way of what would be a long-term decision that you all are making.
Thank you. Is Dr. Clark here?
I would like to, I would hope that given over the last few months of adjusting to this big change for both of those student populations, that excitement would continue to brew, and for families as well. And I'm guessing, and maybe this is wishful thinking, that maybe if it was encouraged to revisit, that there's a little more energy, that the momentum has gotten going. And I'm curious if revisiting this, we might hit a different angle in that, because this is a big investment and it's a big change, and I do think that there could be something a little bit more unique. So if anybody else wants to.
Well, and could we get a larger group involved in talking about this and coming up with ideas, I guess? If there's only 16 people, I mean, that seems like a pretty small.
8 students.
8 students. I guess it would be interesting if we got a larger group involved in the process.
Yeah, I think all of that would be great. I think, when we think even about Student Voice Council, that's drawing from all of our schools. We see limitations to what students are able to lift and join and be part of, as their calendars are very large as well. So again, I feel like I'm putting deterrence up, and that's not my intention. I want to just kind of honor the work that was done, but recognize that this is a big decision, that is a decision that
Is
you'll
it
need
kind
to
of
make.
wondering if like this could be, I don't know, I'm trying to pretend that I'm like a high schooler, but like, could this be like a cahoots thing that like students just start putting names out and then write like.
So that was how this started. So we solicited ideas for names from our community broadly, as well as directly from students. And so that's where the initial list came from. Then we kind of looked at categorization of some kind of hallmarks that we wanted those names to have, which frankly changed over time as well. Yeah, so that's kind of how we landed here.
Dr. Burke, is there a list of the other top names that were discarded? Because my wondering is, can we give those lists to the current students at Bend and Realms and ask them, like, what do you guys think of these names? And if another one rises or another few rise, that could maybe be brought to us at our next meeting, so we could review those names that really have more student voice potentially in them?
Sure, those are all options. They have seen all of these. They came from them and they voted on them.
But 8 students voted on them, right? The
No,
whole school.
everything went out each time to the entire community.
Okay.
To come back, so.
So, I mean, knowing that, like I said, like, we're not inspired by these names, but these are the names our students came up with, for better or worse, if that was the process and every student voted on it.
I'm gonna ask Lakeisha and Zach to come up here for just a moment, and Katie, is Katie back there? Katie, come join us for a moment.
I was gonna ask this.
This is mainly just for board members, if you have any specific questions that you want to ask this group. Because I was part of some, and they have better recollection than me, I am convinced of that.
Welcome, Dr. Clark. Welcome, Zach. Welcome, Katie. How we doing?
Yeah, hi.
Hi. Can you help us a little bit, please? Maybe give us more. If we take it back, if we send it back to the students, I mean, or if we go ahead and pick one of these tonight. I was trying to get, some clarity on this, please.
And please fill in any blanks that maybe I incorrectly stated, if you feel like there was something
And you maybe need to bring the mic closer, because it's hard to pick up. Yep.
I think I would say everything is, I mean, it's a complicated thing when you're trying to come up with a new name. And we had a very specific amount of time to work within. And we did our best. I mean, I think every week we were going to our students and revising and saying, here are some new names. What do you think? what would you like? And so I would say that while the final 3 names came to you from the committee before going out to the full community, because we were trying to respect that process, that's how we were gathering those names. And other than that, I would say for me, I think I mentioned this last time, it is our programming and the amazing work that we get to do that is really going to make us stand out at the end of the day. So if it's one of these 3 names, if we go back to the drawing board, we will respect that process and that decision from you. And that's really where I think our strength will lie.
I think just to emphasize that final point, it did come up again and again in the actual student discussions that our efforts to make kind of more exciting names landed cringy with them. It came kind of around to what are names that we can put out there and get behind, and it sounds like a high school. That was huge for them. It needed to sound like a high school. And that we were going to build the programming that, like Dr. Clark said, is going to be the exciting piece. Absolutely, this is important. We're excited. We're moving on the back end, regardless of having a name or not. So we will go back to the drawing board, absolutely, if you send us. And we have other work to do that feels, perhaps more important than the name.
I would also say, I think it would be interesting, just in full disclosure, to get guidance then, because there's special, standout, there's unique. What is it then that we are thinking about when we're thinking about a choice high school would be the ask that I would have returning as we go back into our community. Again, we're trying to pick a long-term name that is going to grow. Growing and developing with the school was a big component that we discussed a lot in there, as we needed a name that would grow with us, not constrain. And that is a hard thing to do when we are bringing a community together and we're building what that will look like. So I think that's some other things that we are taking into consideration.
Just to clarify, when you said the idea of unique or special names landed in a cringy way, is that for the 8 committee members, the student members, or for the whole student body with the both?
During that discussion is what I'm referring to.
I see.
Though, just to clarify, I think in between each of the 4 meetings, there was some sort of survey of our new finalist list back out to the community in some way. So whether it was, hey, we've narrowed it down to 20, now what's your feedback on these 20? Now we've narrowed it down to 8. We did get that community feedback in between each of those rounds. So yes to both.
But just to be clear, you said there was no clear name of these 3 that the students preferred.
The process that we went through landed us on these 3 as being the 3 that everybody could get behind.
Yeah, on that same note, what you said earlier, Amy, regards to DHS, I did bring up that exact thing during the meeting, and Central Bend High School is like, well, we have Bend High School, now we're Central Bend, but I feel like our discussion team, the smaller team that ultimately landed on the 3, several of the adults were feeling kind of the same way that you'd expressed earlier, including me, but I felt like we really tried to defer to the students to be making the decision that they wanted. Like that was very purposeful, and we felt like it's their school. They need to really have more of a say than anybody like myself or Zach or Lakeisha, very important people, but we wanted to be student focused. And then I also just want to talk a little bit about, how big the committee was, the makeup of the committee. When we first talked about what is this process going to look like, I guess it was in February, maybe, or end of January. And again, timeline's really short, which is a challenge, which everybody is recognizing that. Not ideal, but it is what it is. We had lots of grandiose ideas about how many students were going to get involved and how many classified and certified and families and so on. And you all know that the reality is that when you're asking people to show up And we made all the meetings during SIW time so that staff could be there. Some of them, it was during teacher-directed time, so we paid staff to be there. They had to volunteer to come. We paid them. Same with classified, getting families to come. We did make all of them virtual, so we had several people joining virtually to try to make it as convenient as we could. But honestly, getting students to dedicate to 4 sessions is hard. We did, I thought, the best we could with the situation, but it was a bit of a challenge. So I agree with you. I would love to have more people on the actual committee, but there's a reality to how, when it comes down to it, can I show up at 2:30 instead till 4 for, 4 Wednesdays in a row? So I don't know that we would be more successful with that moving forward. If we said, no, the board didn't accept any of the 3, we're gonna go back and kind of reevaluate what we had. But it is what it is. I mean, if that's what's decided by the board, then we will do certainly the best that we can.
But you all feel like student voice is reflected in these names, right? Because to me as a board member, if you're telling me that these names are, like student voice is reflected, students had input, it wasn't just a small group of students, then as a board, I don't think we should defer that, even if we don't love these names. I can live with one of the names and I'm ready to make a motion if someone wants me to make a motion. Because I totally appreciate Director Olson. I don't love these names, but I can live with Deschutes River High School, especially knowing that that's a name that students chose. I can see imaging of the river and expeditionary learning. It is unique enough from our other high schools. I don't think it will confuse anyone. And DRHS is much better than DHS on a sweatshirt. So I'm gonna move to approve the new choice high school be named Deschutes River High School.
I'll second that.
I have a first and a second. Yes.
Is there not a motion on the floor? to-
Not yet. No, no.
But you didn't actually propose one?
No, we didn't propose one yet. No.
I did, but I did not make it complete.
Right.
I withdraw.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you, Director Olson. Thank you all for the discussion. Thank you all for your time on that. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. I already know what name I would love, but that's another story for another day. All right.
Me too. Can I share that? Oh, that's not appropriate.
Yeah. Well, I can share it now because we're finna vote. So mine was gonna be Midtown High or something like that. That's what I like. All right. So, see, yeah. Yeah, Midtown High is pretty cool, but
Did you guys talk about Midtown High as your name? Okay, no, great. It was on the table and students didn't want it, so perfect.
right, right. I got us all out of the names. That's the only reason I know. All right, motion, please, if we have one. Ready? I want to make sure. And a second. All right, Mr. Tomlin, thank you. All right, all in favor? Oh, excuse me, discussion. We've been discussing a lot already. Any additional discussion? How's that? No additional discussion? All right, I call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, I have it is going to be Deschutes River High School.
Yay.
Thank you, directors. Thank you for the conversation, and thank you for Dr. Clark, Zach, and Mr. Legacy. Thank you very much. And now we're going to be turning over to Dean Richards. I've seen him leave. Oh, he's back. Okay. Okay, Dean Richards, to be able to go over our math. Let's grab one then. I know, right? Okay, cool.
This will make it live when you're ready. Good evening. I'm here and excited to continue our 3rd year in a row of talking about some math stuff. This year, we're not going to do some instructional pieces with you, so you get to relax a little bit. But we're going to talk about our +1 courses. So we'll talk a little bit about what that means. I have with me Linda Adams, who's our instructional coach, and Aaron Johnson, who's a math teacher at Bend High. And turn over to them here in a minute. But I want to kind of set some of the pieces that we've talked about. There it goes. Start with a little confusing graphic here. So we've talked about the pieces at the top. We've talked about Math 1 and Math 2. Linda's going to bring us up to date on that. The place where we're going to start and what we're really talking about today is the courses that are the ones in the big with the big boxes around them that are, so remember the state moved a couple years ago to the 2+1, cute name because it's math, 2 courses, algebra and a geometry and data. Those are the courses that everyone takes. And then the +1 courses, we move into a data reasoning pathway, the quantitative pathway, and the calculus pathway, where students at the junior year have options for the additional 3rd course or more, 3 required courses, three required credits, I should say, that students need to take to graduate from high school. So students can, once they graduate from that 2nd year of math, out of Math 2, they have the full options to be able to move into any of those pathways, depending on what they are most interested in. So we're going to talk a little bit about exploring data science, applied mathematics, math and society, and Math 3, also the advanced Math 3, which will be the same curricular choices. So we're not going to talk about AP or IB, and Linda will talk a little bit about that. We're also not going to talk about financial algebra because that's not a course that is currently, it's going to be it's not going to be offered next year. We don't have anyone that is, once we're ready to have that course next year, or when we're ready to produce that course, we'll bring that to you. But that's not one that we're going to offer next year. It's just not in our offerings, but available within the quantitative pathways when we get there. So I'll turn it over to Linda a little bit to kind of talk about how we got to this and how we have this love of the learning of mathematics.
3 years ago, thanks, Dean. 3 years ago, the high school math adoption team came together and we read NCTM's Catalyzing Change in Mathematics to just kind of bring us all together on the same playing field about what mathematics looks like in today's high schools. And we created our core beliefs, and we believe a lot of things. There's a lot of stuff there, but I just want to highlight a couple of them. We believe that all students can think critically and reason mathematically. And we believe that our curriculum materials should use relevant and engaging tasks that allow students to problem solve and to practice their critical thinking skills. We also believe that students will be more successful if they feel that they are a part of a classroom, that they feel that they belong. They'll be more willing to take risks and to make mistakes, which we know is critical to learning. Is that this one right there? So the last 2 years, we've adopted Mathematic for our core courses, as Dean talked about, Math 1 and Math 2. And if you remember, those were some of the lessons that some of you were subjected to, the experience first, formulate later, which has gone really well for our core classes. We will not, we don't adopt anything for our AP or IB courses. Teachers do attend trainings for those, and they learn about the texts that are fit for those courses. So that's not something that we'll be looking at. And our articulated courses with our community colleges generally have curriculum recommendations as well.
Can I just ask a question about the AP piece?
Yeah.
Is it consistent across all of our high schools? So like AP Calcut, Summit is the same as AP, great.
Yes.
Perfect.
They'll all have textbooks. It's not necessarily the same text because they will go to different trainings and the trainers may train on different texts. So it is all to the same. So there are a number of approved AP calculus texts, but they are, because the trainers may train to different texts, they may not have the same text.
But they are set up almost exactly the same.
Is that a difference in cost to our district if we're purchasing? No, so it doesn't change the financial impact of the curriculum purchase, great.
Yep.
Okay, I have a question about that. Why are they not trained in the same?
It's just, it's the way that the College Board works. They have a number, like their concern is the finality rather than the process. So, and Aaron, who's an IB teacher, can kind of speak to this, sort of the same process. We were having a conversation about this early. They're worried about the test at the end more than even more than the instructional moves or the instructional tools along the way. So there's a variety of instructional tools, texts that they may use. There are vetted, there's a canon of texts that they may use, but and I don't have the number per, but it is, there's a certain number that are vetted. Teachers then return from training and say, I would like this text that I've been trained on and familiar with.
Do we have a sense of the number of different texts that are?
Two.
Two, yeah.
So if,
And they're virtually, that you look at them, they're, other than the cover and the authors being
so if
different,
a
they are.
student comes from Caldera and transfers to Summit, they could jump in pretty easily? Okay.
Yep.
And it's clear it doesn't impact the scores on the final test.
No.
When the student.
No, they're all vetted and approved by AP. I mean, so the variability would be would not be different, no.
Perfect. All right, so I'll start talking about our different +1 curriculum options that we're suggesting. First will be with Math 3 and Advanced Math 3. We had a group of teachers that went through about a half a dozen different curriculum that were all vetted by ODE. In terms of what we wanted for our intro into our calculus track, as Math 3 and Advanced Math 3 would be. As we looked at these curriculum, we thought Big Ideas was the best for our students in terms of the approach, the functions they were covered, the overarching themes, and the wealth of resources, both in terms of Spanish and English resources, being able to accelerate and remediate, being able to have different ways of covering the material. We also thought it was a benefit that that curriculum was already familiar to many of our teachers, many of our students in the district as we move forward. I've got the book here if people want to look at the newest version that's prettier than the older versions. And through that process, we also looked at primarily digital resources. Not that we thought that going strictly digital was the best for our students, but as it is currently unfolded in our classrooms, most of our Math 3 classrooms and Advanced Math 3 classrooms access the curriculum through their iPads, but still are required to write, whether it's on pencil and paper or on their iPad every day. We thought that was an important, as a adoption team, that was an important part of making sure students were still writing in terms of their learning and their retention. So that's the curriculum we agreed on for Math 3 and Advanced Math 3 to start our calculus pathway. I'm going to do this a little bit different because I think the ideas behind applied math and data science are pretty similar. Both those are currently taught each in one high school in our district. And so we moved to, in each of those, adopt the curriculum that's being used at those schools. We think those courses could be very beneficial to other schools in terms of as we all adopt our +1 ideas as we go through this. We also, in data science, the blueprint from ODE is what they are going to adopt through Clackamas Community College and their articulation through there. So it gives us the options not only to expand on what Summit is doing right now in that course, but to partner with CCC as they start pushing along the ODE adoption. And then in Math and Society, that is a more open source curriculum through COCC. Right now, they require 3 to 4 topics and then have a list of a few other topics that a teacher can choose from. And I believe all high schools are offering that. And it's a great course for students that are going to go into more humanities type careers to meet a math requirement in high school, so that as they go to college, they can start to accelerate their learning in the areas they're going to study in. So as you see up here, our professional learning plan with Big Ideas, being that it's already in use, and every teacher that teaches that course has access to a large wealth of resources through that. We don't see any professional learning needed. with applied math, again, already in use. And then with math and society and data science, the beauty of those is both of those are articulated through community colleges. We all have a lot of teachers right now going through CUCC, and this summer, Clackamas Community College is actually offering money for teachers to come and articulate through them, which is pretty special. So through those, we'll be able to articulate through those schools and not only be aligned in our district, but in districts around the state, which is pretty powerful.
So we'll open it up for any questions.
So I know we got these answers earlier, but I want to make sure that the people hear this in public. The applied math is 100% paper and pen, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The math and society, the course is between 60 to 40% paper and tech, correct?
And there's some spreadsheet work and piece that students are working on with that, yep.
And then also, most of the work is in paper and pencil when it comes to most of your Math 3, and exploratory science is 80%. Is that digital or is that written?
That's essentially a coding class, right?
Okay.
So like big data, right? So they're that's a, yep.
They need technology.
That's a technology class, yep.
It's coding, right?
It's
yes,
coding, yeah,
yes,
it's coding,
right, I get
coding
it.
big data class.
Yeah, I get it. Cool. So I want to make sure we get those clarifications so
data-
people.
data science, yep.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any additional questions, directors, for the math adoption?
I do actually, in the spirit of paper pencil, math focused. Going back to the pathway slide, are there any here where paper pencil are not an option? And I think you just mentioned exploring data. Which one was it? Sorry.
Yeah.
But the exploring data science is 80% a coding class, but there are about 20.
So the
I talked-
others.
Yeah,
What
I
about
talked to
the
the teacher yesterday, and he leads with paper pencil, but the other ones are, and the Math and Society has some spreadsheet work and components, but otherwise it's paper pencil.
When they're looking at data and graphs, it's kind of, they need to use technology to do that. But where they're not, Math and Society has some personal finance, which is spreadsheet stuff. But when it's not, there's paper pencil, yeah.
Okay. So for every other class listed up
For the
here.
ones that we're talking about, yeah.
Yeah.
Here, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So on the math and society, you mentioned personal finance. What other kind of math is involved in that class?
Let me get the top of my head. There's the personal finance, there's some function work, but it's all applied, right? And then I'm trying to think what the third one is.
One of my favorite, so Aaron Hoffman, who's the teacher at Caldera, at the end of December, did a study of the geometry of cultural artifacts. And so when you would look at, say, like a Native American print, and you would look at the geometric patterns that were laid across that, or the tessellations that might occur across some artwork, and the deep and rich mathematical patterns that have been across cultures that have been here since time immemorial.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the other, the 60% are the third piece. I'm sorry, I can't remember what it is. But the other pieces teachers can choose. So Aaron has done cryptography. The art piece that Dean's talking about, there's actually voting math. So
Linda and I did a presentation at a conference one year, and I don't know if it's out, but this could be the type of course where we look at sound waves and look at the mathematics of
music
sound
and
waves
math.
and of music. Would fit in a math and society course.
So teachers get to choose something that you know that they are passionate about when they do that and bring it in. So like Aaron said, there's a really nice selection choice beyond the three that they ask you to do. It's an exciting class, even for somebody who's going into the calculus. I've tutored lots of kids in Math and Society, and it is a fun class.
Yeah, I was just curious because I know some of the community colleges offer a class that kind of focuses on getting students to like math
Yeah.
and what how does it fit into the world, and those kind of things that kind of break down that fear factor.
It's all applied, and you're absolutely right. I've had 2 students that I tutored who, after taking math and society, which they thought was going to be the end of their math, decided that they wanted to take advanced algebra, and because they decided they liked math more than they thought. So just those experiences.
And that's one of the nice things about the +1 pathways is you don't have to stay in one pathway. So you could take a math and society and then go to a math 3, or you could take an AP stats and then go to math 3. I mean, that may be unusual, but you certainly could, right? Like you can jump amongst the +1s.
So speaking of jumping around, at the moment, a student could go from AP Pre-Calc to BC at Summit. And it sounds like maybe this is not an option anymore if we
To go from
Pre-Calc to BC, because BC covers A.
So the typical pathway to BC they would typically take Math 1 as an 8th grader to get all the way to BC.
Yeah.
So, and then go into Advanced Math 2, AP Pre-Calc as a sophomore, AB as a
And then
as a
BC.
junior.
And at
BC.
Summit, we do have students who just go straight from AP Pre-Calc to BC,
Yep.
or who go from Advanced Math 2 to AP AB.
Yep.
And it sounds like maybe we're gonna try and encourage that AB to happen before BC, is that?
AB typically happens before BC. Yeah.
But if a student was ready for BC because they
I mean,
would still be.
I would.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not gonna be in a position to make that decision for that student or that family or
Great.
or that math teacher, right? Like that's
The other thing to keep in mind is calculus is 3 courses. I have an engineering background. They wanted me to take all my calculus at college, right? Because they are courses that will follow right after each other. And I know my daughter, who was became an engineer as well, she took the first AP calculus course, knowing that she was going to take it again when she went to OSU, because those are such important courses in that engineering work that you don't want to rush a student through this stuff and have them missing
The rush,
pieces of
I
it.
think, comes from attempting to align this with a physics-based science
Sure.
curriculum, and they're hearing from their physics teachers, like, I need you to get going on this,
Yeah,
and
and
that's.
I would also want to align, look into the College Board and check in with them as well.
Financial algebra frightens me, but can you just talk about what that is?
It was, a lot of the course was, a lot of the curriculum that was used previously was turned into our personal finance course. So a lot of the same, so it's a little more, it's a mathematical personal finance course.
Does it
So-
have some business?
So,
math in
yeah,
it?
it had some business, so it has elements of math and society. So just think like the business end of math and society without the art and music components, right?
So why is it still listed under the quant pathway?
So it is an option that the state has put forward, and we could still have it as a course that would be available. So it has been taught.
When was it last taught?
Was it last year?
Zach left. Realms has had it last year or this year.
Oh, okay, so when it's saying not currently, you're talking about the next academic
Yeah, it's not going to be taught next year at Realms.
Right, okay.
Or at Deschutes River High School.
Good, that's good.
Yeah.
Directors, any additional questions? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Burke? You have a busy day.
All right. Okay, so I am going to talk a little bit about what's called the strategic priorities update. But really what the mechanism that causes this to occur is always a budget season. So when we start budget season, we talk about what are we investing in, what are we spending our time on? And so much of this as board members is somewhat of a review. Some of you in the audience, it may be some new information, but likely some review as well. So Let's see, let's start with sort of a high-level look back in terms of historical biennial state school fund funding. And so I know those numbers are pretty tiny, but to the farthest to the right is 11.4 billion. So that represents the state school fund for education. And so as you can see, over time, that has increased, just like all costs in the history of costs, right? Things get more expensive over time, and so we require more funds in order to make things happen. What is interesting about this is that in terms of what public education has received from the state fund generally, that over time, that percentage has decreased despite this increasing. So when we see costs, or when we see funds increase like 11.4 billion across our state, that also represents an inadequate sort of representation of what costs have been increasing at. And so over time, our schools have received less funding than they have in the past. Like if we were talking about this 20 years ago, that percentage of what the state has to offer and allocate to schools is less. What you also will see, and this is just kind of outlines the biennial funding. So as a reminder, our schools are funded on a biennium basis, and they're always funded for 49% of our funding that we receive in the first year and 51% of our funding we receive in the second year, with the recognition that costs increase every year. And so straight 50-50 wouldn't be adequate to sort of support the needs that we have. So generally, this is around a 4.1% increase year over year in general. This is what we typically see. So for Ben Lapine, as we come a little bit closer to our district, we have seen over time a drop in enrollment in the past 6 years. And that has happened for a number of different reasons, and really catapulted at the time of the pandemic. What is coupled with this, you all are understanding this living in the Ben Lapine area, is that our costs in our area are really challenging, especially for a young family to move into. So what we find is that although we see around Bend things growing, we don't see that growth coming from families that have young children. Over time, we see a capture rate, meaning that from K to 12, we start to have more students come into our schools a little bit later, and often those are from families who have recently moved in, that their kids are older, so they become a little bit more established families, and their wealth might be such that they can move to an area such as Bend, which is a little bit different than other places might be seen. So as you can see, in the past 6 years, we've declined in enrollment about 2,000-ish students. And as we move forward, we see probably some moderate declines will continue over the next handful of years. So generally, Ben Lapine's operating budget, it sits at about $246 million. And we have another source of funding that is known as integrated programs. And this outlines some grant areas that we receive funding right around the 20 million mark, a little bit more than that. That includes some very program-specific type of funding, so things like high school success, which really can only be spent for areas outlined within a couple of bullet points related to high school outcomes. So dropout prevention, CTE pathways, those types of things are engaged in our high school success. Other parts of that grant are called the Student Investment Fund. Those also are for kind of a well-rounded education that includes some mental health, wellness, et cetera. And so we fund a number of different programs in there. The moral of the story, though, is that in general, the majority of the integrated programs funding is all funding people. And so what we see as we notice costs for staff increase, they are increasing at a rate that is not commensurate with what we receive from integrated programs. So when funding remains relatively stagnant, but cost of staffing increases, that means that you can fund fewer people out of that grant, and those then people need to be funded out of general fund, or we need to start to make decisions about how we allocate our funds there. We talk about our promise in Ben Lapine that's kind of starts with where are we headed? Why do we exist? And we believe that we're a place where we want every student to be known by name, strength, and need, and become that they graduate ready for a future of their choosing. And so we want them to be prepared, passionate, excited, and ready for what's in the future for them. We also have been very interested in becoming a place that is both a workplace of choice and kind of an organization within our community where people are seeking out positions, and making sure that their experience within our buildings where students and staff are thriving in both their education, work, and their lives. All of that is brought forward and sort of shepherded through the work of our board of directors, as you see here. Thank you all for your work. And we kind of focus on we tend to move all of our decisions through 4 main areas. So the first is that we are designing our curriculum so that students are engaged in a curriculum that has rigor and is strong, and that they have a strong academic foundation. Number 2 is that students are developing a passion, purpose, and plan for their future as they engage in work in Ben Lapine schools. Number 3 is that everybody who connects with our organization experiences wellness, inclusion, and belonging, and they can see themselves in our space. And number 4 is a consistent area of action for Ben Lapine where we are always trying to tune up our systems so that our operational systems are both sustainable and efficient. And so over time, we have a lot of changes in this area. So those things look like changes to our ERP and having finance and HR more connected. And it also causes us to sort of interrogate some of our practices that have been longstanding practices, both instructionally and operationally throughout Ben Lapine. This is not unique to Ben Lapine, but we certainly fall in this category that anybody who's involved in public education, about 85% of what you invest in is people. Pretty much everything that we do is related to staffing and making sure that excellent people are in front of our students. There's about 15% that represents services that are engaged, that are related to utilities, debt services, licenses, and then instructional materials and different choices that relate to that. So in any budget, 85% for public education is really made up of people. So when we think about moving into budget season and what we spend our time on, it is, hopefully moral of the story, you understand that it is people. And there are some general fund factors that are really hitting us, again, not unique to Ben Lapine, but we certainly are not out of the ordinary here. So increasing costs for staffing. We know that healthcare costs are going up at a rate that is different than sort of a standard movement in our state school fund. We receive about that 4 to 5% increase over time, remember, in our state school fund. But in our staffing, we have both cost of living increases, step increases, health insurance increases, and PERS increases. And because those all come together for any staffing decision, that far outpaces what we are seeing in terms of what we are receiving from the state school fund. PERS costs are unique in that PERS costs have really been, over the past 20 years, we used 3 different what are called side accounts to buy down our rates. And that saved us about a little under $55 million over the past 20 years. So that was great. And now they are expiring, all of them. And so that is something that, again, is not unique to us, but as they expire, now we have a cost that is new to us by about $9 million. Special education costs are outpacing our revenue. And special education continues to be an area that is underfunded from the state consistently. So when we fund special education, that comes from both the state school fund as well as IDEA and what's called high cost disability. So the state school fund is funds up to 11% of our students who are identified in special education. And so for Ben Lapine, we have about closer to 13% of our students that are identified in this area, which means that we are not funded additionally for that gap between that 13 and 11%. Additionally, the cost of students who are often medically fragile or require really intense costs related to the services that we deliver, we are reimbursed for those at about 23 cents on the dollar. So what that means is that that's up a little bit over $8 million of a gap that is a cost to our general fund right off the bat. We don't have an option to not serve students. These are all of our students and they deserve a great education. But what that means is that we have to make choices to not fund other things because we have underfunded as a state special education. So unless something changes with the high cost disability funding or with removing or eliminating the cap, that will continue to be our reality. Additionally, declining enrollment impacts us because obviously when you have fewer students, you need fewer staff. So there's a decline in staffing, but also you receive less funding. So a decline of about 2,000 students over the past 5 years represents about $23 million to less that we are receiving in our state school fund. And we have some unfunded mandates that are just now on our plate. So as a reminder, we have things like last year, what was put forward is some new credits in high school related to personal finance and careers that we don't have an option to not teach, but we also are not funded for new staff to teach those things. And so what that means is then we need to make choices on what we can fund over time. So this relates to the student investment account. You can see this was that $22 million. That is another area of funding that we receive. But if you look at this, this is the areas where we can utilize these dollar amounts. And then the SIA plan, so that's what this relates to, is again, moral of the story is primarily salaries, $16.3 million, and other operating costs that represent about $600,000 out of that bucket. High school success is another funding stream that lives within that integrated guidance, and that is for dropout prevention, career and technical education, and college and career readiness. And that is, again, salaries at $4.6 million and $117,000 related to other operational costs. So what are our commitments or things that we are spending our time and our energy on moving forward in Ben Lapine? The first, as we move into next year, is a new one, also an unfunded mandate. That is KA assessment implementation. So the governor and the legislature really generally had passed what's called Senate Bill 141, and that says that we must give interim assessments 3 times a year in reading and mathematics in grades K through 8 and report to the board on progress. So right now we are in the phase of sort of understanding the 4 options that we were given and then what that means for us and which ones we're going to choose. So that will be a new learning for all staff. That will be a new kind of tax to our professional development. It may give us really useful information, but it is also something that is unfunded and yet mandated. Standards-based instruction and grading, it has been about a 5-year journey, and we continue into that, as Chair LeGrand said, into our full-based implementation beginning in the fall. So over the past 5 years, we've kind of inched forward in that, some schools taking that on full scale, and then now this year we're to about 60% of our staff are engaged in that as early adopters, and then the remaining 40% will move into next year. This is an important lift in the sense that right now, our students, because of our adult, where we have allowed adults to opt in at different times, our students are then sort of feeling the brunt of experiencing having staff that are in this and staff that are not in this. And so they're needing to navigate different grading. And that's really been a challenge. You heard that tonight in the Student Voice Council. And so we're looking forward to having some adults moving all in so that we can make systems a little bit better for students as we move into the new year. Life and career readiness is something we continue to be engaged in. This is kind of consistency with utilizing and supporting counselors throughout our system, making sure that students recognize what they like, what they're good at, what they're stoked about as they move into secondary careers, and what they're able to sort of test drive as they are in high school. And then this is a new piece for us in with a partnership through West Ed. This is a grant that we currently have, and this is to help us build out what are called our multi-tiered systems of support. Right now, what that means in our schools is that we have ways in which we're sort of monitoring the progress and success of our students and being able to quickly recognize when a student needs a support and kind of catching them before they fall through the cracks. But what that means over time is that for Ben Lapine, every school has their own sort of way in which they do that. And that is inefficient and not very sustainable, both from a professional development standpoint as well as just a generalized support. So we're working hard to streamline that and have that be the same across all of our systems. All right, so as a reminder, our enrollment has declined. And yet we continue to focus on all of these pieces, and we continue to look at our budget for areas that we can tighten up, make some better decisions, and sort of interrogate the practices that we have had over time, so that our students feel the hit of these budgetary pieces as little as possible over the next 3 years. So the timeline for the budget is March 17th. The proposed budget will go to committee. May 12th, we will have a second budget meeting and the committee will approve. And then in June, the board will adopt the budget. Happy to take any questions.
Directors?
I have a question, and maybe we've touched on this in past meetings, but with regard to the general fund factors that you list, all very valid. I think we continue to go back to the special education costs, and this isn't anything new. And so I want to be cautious of keep mentioning that as opposed to unfunded mandates, and also our significant drop in enrollment in the last 5-ish years of 1,500 students that for lots of different reasons, but what are some ways where the district can take more of initiative in addressing one of those factors? Do we have some ideas that are coming, that we've been discussing or that are on the table?
Oh, Director Fisher.
I mean, maybe this has been addressed, but I mean, I think some of the things that I just feel like we keep, I feel like we're kind of just hammering these other areas, which these are all, increased staffing that's been going on for a while, PERS costs for a while,
All of these have gone on for a while.
I mean, the
yeah.
enrollment is just within the last 5 years, this issue. So,
So I guess I would say is that all of those things have gone on over time, and the enrollment component has exacerbated it.
yeah.
Enrollment is, you can think of it as its own thing, but really it is about revenue, right? It is a
Right,
revenue
exactly.
and
That's what
cost source. So large scale conversations, which have not been started in earnest, but are around, a year ago or this time 2 years ago, really, we were asking our community for a levy to
Right.
recognize
we're
certain
talking about it again.
areas that we are unable to fund, just categorically unable to fund. And so if that changes by some sort of miracle, that would be lovely. That miracle seems less and less likely to occur. So receiving funding in a different way from our community is one area. Another area is looking at the buildings and zoning that not zoning, but the buildings that we currently have, many of which are under enrolled, right? So when we have fewer students in a building, there's lots of things that exacerbate challenges related to fiscal needs. And sometimes that is just like we have more bodies or more utility bills and things like that. But sometimes it's also more instructional. Like you end up with a lot of blends in our early grades, which can be great, but that assumes that people are well trained for blends. And so we're trying to think about all of these options as what are realistic ways that we can support moving forward. So I think our advocacy at the state level to highlight when or if great ideas are coming down the pipe as what will land in our lap as unfunded mandates have made a real difference over the past handful of years. So I think advocacy at the state level continues to be a big need. Us to take a look at our enrollment broadly in Ben Lapine and say, like, are there areas that really we should be reconsidering or having some more conversation about? And then when or if we might go to our community to say, hey, here are our constraints. How do you feel about something like that? All of these are ways in which districts, not unique to ours, think about massive fiscal constraints. But we are very nearing that time.
Well, and I think one of the great examples is the problem solving with regard to Realms and BenTech. And I'm wondering if there's more that I haven't heard about or that, would be helpful for us to start thinking about, in addition to the advocacy piece. And I know Dr. Cook's, involved in that, but it's just, I just read an article about schools closing, I think it was in Medford, and basically recalling the board because of, which I know we're not talking about that, but just if there are other ways that we can help, and one of the reasons I was kind of concerned about the name for the new high school is part of that is drawing students, but also drawing families and choice option, keeping that enrollment for when we think about some of the families who don't stay. Some of those choice options are so essential, right? And so if there are other things that I missed, or that maybe the district's talking about, we haven't heard about, I would love to hear more too.
Yeah, no, I think you have heard about all of the things. And I would say, I feel really proud about that in the past couple of years, is that our intention has been to be as transparent as possible in all of our things. Like, here's our money, here's what we spend our time on, like all of these things in a way that feels a little bit different than I've experienced in the past. But what that means is that, we're really drawing to light real challenges that over the past even couple, like 3 to 4 years, we have been making changes related to right-sizing staffing that have been sort of unseen to some degree because we've been able to do that through attrition, right? So when we're able to have somebody retire and then we just don't fill that role, that is a different type of hit to our system. Then now we're starting to come to a time where we don't have any of those positions that we can no longer not fill, right? And so now that becomes a different type of conversation that we end up saying, okay, what are our practices? Like, we're looking in the couch cushions.
Are you done?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry. I wanted to ask just about dropping enrollment numbers, and if there's anything, I know we're gonna hear the Flow Analytics data at some point coming up in a next board meeting, but is there anything in the Flow Analytics data about declining enrollment, whether it is truly lack of people having children and lower birth rate versus still having the same number of school-age, community members, but that parents are choosing not to send their children to our public schools? Is that data in Flow Analytics at all?
Not with that specificity, but what you'll see is that birth rates have not really dramatically declined for Ben Lapine. But what has changed is that when the pandemic hit, that caused a lot of families to leave this area. That was like, they absolutely up and left. And so we are experiencing that. What Flo will not notice directly, and I'm looking to Paul, is the specifics around like private school enrollment, homeschool enrollment, those types of things. But those are all, we know those to be happening. The rate to which they happen, I think, has increased it in the sense that there are more options available to folks now. But I don't know that that is like a gleaming light on what our challenge with enrollment is. I think that the challenge, I would state, relates to cost in our area. That's not the only thing.
Housing costs, you mean, right?
Housing costs, yeah, and just living costs. But what will be interesting with the Flow Analytics data is we've also been able to understand what types of housing brings certain families, where those things are located in our community. So for example, like a Jack Straw type of area, that might take sort of a 10 or 20 of those housing units to equate to a student. And so that's what's very interesting in our building, is that around town, you'll see lots of building in all kinds of areas. And sometimes from an educational standpoint, that produces students, and sometimes it absolutely does not. So those are factors related to that both the city deal with as well as we do in the education.
I'm just going to answer my own question a little bit. Is one of the things that we did last October is the tax abatement for the two housing developments or complexes, South 97, South 3rd, or whatever, that, being alert of those types of opportunities, which I think will very much support not only our families, but our teachers and others for enrollment.
Yeah, the data supports that as well.
Director Lynch, I think you had a question.
Before we move on from that, I will say that city is going to be evaluating, Borough is going to be evaluating more of these programs soon, like April 1st. And I think the sooner that this school board can get a sense for what that data shows us about the sorts of projects that result in positive enrollment effects for us, like the sooner we can help the city as they prioritize projects. Speaking out of turn, will say I have a great reluctance to continue to fund tax abatements for the sorts of projects that don't result in future enrollment for us, partially because it's like a double hit to us, like we're giving up our own tax revenue and then at the same time also giving up the ability to support our students and families. And would like to be able to, have that in a format that's very clear as our city council and borough thinks about bringing us those sorts of projects in the future.
Well, and I was going to say, I do wonder if that kind of data can be given to us with those reports in the future. If they're being asking us for a tax abatement, like what is the number of students we expect to get per unit? I'm looking at Paul, if that's something that's possible based on housing projects. You can nod or say possibly, but I think that would be really important data for us as a board to know before we are approving these.
I wanted to go back to the slide about the student investment account before we move too much further on this. The student investment account is, of course, tied to a historic investment that this state and its tax-paying corporations made in education, of late in the form of the corporate activity tax, and generally designed, as you see from the slide, to be augmentive, as opposed to just like plugging holes for us. In the adopted budget, the way that we sort of see that presented is in the break, it breaks down. We spend about half of it on instruction and about half of it on student services. In the adopted budget, we can see things like the number of FTEs it applies to. It's really hard for me reading that budget to understand the augment factor. And I'm hoping that as we move into our new budget cycle, we can find a way to be more clear that we are not just plugging holes with this money. We are doing things that are, that were the intention of this money, whether that means investing in the very specific curricular functions that are listed there, or reducing class loads and being able to show that to the community, like, hey, look, once we had this SIA number, you know, our average elementary went from whatever, 24 to 23, something. I'd like to be able to present that in a future deck that, you know, that makes it more clear how we're spending this money.
Yeah, I think, thanks for that. I'm happy to produce that. I think what will be able to be seen is at the time of the initial investment that there will be an obvious augment. But over time, those services have become part of the fabric of who we are. So things like our counselors did not exist prior to the degree that they do, and now they do. But as costs increase, we're able to fund fewer of them in this space. And to your point, do they continue to be augmentative, or are they in fact foundational to what we believe is important for students? And so there has been a change over time, but I'm happy to go back and demonstrate that at least initial change that, again, over time has altered in our landscape.
As we're talking about budget and our upcoming meeting, would you please convey to Dan that I extremely disappointed at the end of the special session with no change in school funding. We were hoping, maybe hoping isn't even the right word, we were looking for a miracle, and it didn't happen. But the May revise will be coming up about the time we're being asked to approve the budget. So if he has any indications of what that May revise might look like for our next budget meeting, the 17th, I'd really like to have that information.
Thank you, directors. One last thing I would like to ask is, are you saying ultimately, to summarize some of this, is that some of the things that we offer in our district where it costs a lot more, we may have to eliminate some of those things, and also because our constituents in this community are asking us to do a lot more things than the average community would ask them to do, or those things that are, you know, causing us more cost as well. The other piece I wanted to ask, are we thinking about rezoning? Because I look at a place like Summit where the median age is starting to increase and get older, and they don't have school-age children to be able to go to and attend those areas. That's something I'm looking at too. The other thing is I was looking at as well is, what is we going to have to do to be able to come together to maybe figure out exactly what we're going to need if we do decide to have a levy one of these days?
All right, so I'll quickly answer those 4 questions. The first is, let's see, in terms of us needing to maybe let go of positions, that's absolutely part of our landscape. Like we may be thinking about certain areas that need to reduce in a way that, again, can't be handled through attrition. In terms of our community asking us to do more than what other communities ask of their schools, I don't know that to be true. I think we have an excellent community that asks great things of our schools, and that's what we're charged to do. So I think that that we need to be able to live through that as well as possible. But I don't know that Bend is like as a constituency saying, you know, you're not providing certain things that we expect of you. So from a like fiscal hit sort of standpoint, in terms of thinking about rebounding or those types of things that you're talking about, absolutely, those are mechanisms that we could look at into our future that may cause us to say, okay, we aren't going to live in a space where we're under enrolled in several buildings. We're going to be full in fewer buildings, but we have not landed on a time at which that would occur. And then in terms of us going forward for a levy, or having a conversation about that, I mean, we have a lot of stakeholders involved in that, so that would take a lot of different conversations. That's not at this second happening, but you know, maybe part of our landscape into the future.
Thank you, Dr. Burke. Appreciate it. Any additional question, directors? All right, thank you.
I will just add one thing in that although we've experienced declining enrollment, and Director Fisher, you mentioned this related to special education, for both special education and for multilingual students, we've seen an increase over time for those students despite a declining overall enrollment. And so that hit of of the special education funding is particularly impactful because of those areas that I outlined. But then in our general ed funding, we are seeing fewer students. And so that whole group is increasing, which, you know, again, I don't think is unique to us, but a challenge that across our state, we need to see some change.
Just to clarify, you're seeing an increase of identification and students who require those services, not necessarily an increase in enrollment with entering school in kindergarten with those.
We have more students who qualify for special education than
And entering at kinder?
I would have to look at the kinder specific, but engaged in our schools, K-12.
Right, okay, and that's across the state. Yeah.
One last thing, you mentioned, I think earlier, when did the students return? Is it middle school, when they start and they come back into our district once they go private? I can't remember that data.
It really, the specificity of what you're talking about really depends on, you know, particular families. So families, I could sort of say random things, but I don't know those to be true. I think typically what we would see if people are engaged in homeschool is they're less likely to engage in a homeschool component when we're talking about like chemistry and, you know, things that have a little bit more like band or those types of things that often occur in our upper grades. But over time, I would say from kinder to 12th grade, we have a capture rate of over 100%, meaning that each year we see more students come to our schools. It's not like at this line, this is when kids come in. That increases over time.
One more thing, just with regard to special education, we may see an increase of identification across the state, but for our school district, we still have one of the lowest identification rates of special education students in the entire state at less than 12%-ish. So it's relative, right, with our student population.
Thank you. All right. Now we will hear from, thank you, Dr. Burke, sorry about that. Thank you very much. We hear from Kinsey Martin, Executive Director of Policy and Advocacy, to discuss our governance. Just 30 seconds.
Good evening. I'm Kinsey Martin, Executive Director of Policy and Advocacy. I am here this evening just to discuss the proposed board policy that you will find in your packet. Currently, we have no board policy regarding our community-funded, our fundraising, our donations, public gifts. And as you know, we are almost 2 years into a revision process related to those policies and practices. We believe, for a number of reasons, that a board policy would be appropriate and helpful here. One is because OSBA, our state policy guidance people, gurus, they recommend and have as part of their landscape of suggested policies, a board policy that relates to this topic. Second, we know this is a matter of substantial interest to the community and to our schools. And with that, we think having you all as elected officials who are representing the community speaking about this topic and setting some guidance for us would be very helpful. Additionally, this topic touches issues of budget, curriculum, student outcomes, which are all under your governance model, topics that you typically provide guidance around. And so a draft would really help us make sure that our administrative policies, regs, and then any practices that we develop are in alignment with your guidance and direction as a board. So with that, there's a proposal in there for you. It is based on the state model policy as well as community input and data that we've been digging through over the past couple of years, and we welcome any changes, discussion, questions, and ultimately, hopefully, maybe next month, a final product. It is out for public feedback as well, so we anticipate getting some public comments on the document.
Thank you, Kinsey. Appreciate it very much. Now we will discuss the executive limitation policy that's in front before us. Dr. Burke will provide us a quick review of the process on this policy.
During the October 28th, 2025 and January 27th, 2026 work sessions, the board had the opportunity to review its executive limitation policies and ensure alignment with all aspects of the board's role regarding governance, responsibilities, and general operating guidance, as well as alignment with the board mission, vision, and organizational goals. District staff compiled the notes from the two meetings and updated each of the executive limitations policy accordingly. The policies are now before you to discuss and adopt if you so choose.
All right, directors, is there any discussion on any of the policies that are presented? Okay. Seeing that there's no discussion right now, I will now entertain a motion.
I move to adopt the executive limitation policies as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have Mr. Tomlin is actually the motion. Director Tatum is second the motion. Any discussion? Hearing that there's no discussion, I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. I believe the ayes have it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kenzie. Thank you, Dr. Burke. And now we're going to, the agenda items we added to the agenda tonight. Director Tatum is going to lead us with this. And Director Tatum, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted us to have a conversation about technology use within our schools based on, conversations happening not just with our community, but also nationally and internationally. We are seeing schools pull back on technology, acknowledging that maybe we move too fast, and not necessarily seeing outcomes associated with the investment. I have deep concerns about use of technology, particularly with our youngest learners in elementary school. And even, reading the executive limitation that we just adopted, we say that we'll ensure technology use is research-based, developmentally appropriate, and aligned with best practices in K-12 education, and that educational technology will be used for educational purposes and implemented in ways that support student mental health and well-being. And currently, I think we have a lot of ed tech in our classrooms that is not necessarily for educational purposes. And that is something that I think I want us as a board to consider a resolution. I would love to work on one with one or two fellow board members to bring back so that we can make a statement to our community. I also want it to be collaborative, and I want the district to be looking and using our experts in the community who have deep knowledge of this outside of education to really look at this as the multifaceted issue that it is. The Brookings report that was given to us in our packet, there were several sections of that, frankly, that I don't think our district use of AI particularly is aligned with that. I'm going to read a paragraph from it. Ultimately, we find that at this point in its trajectory, the risks of utilizing AI in education overshadow its benefits. This is largely because the risks of AI differ in nature from its benefits. That is, these risks undermine children's foundational development. For example, when trust between students and teachers is diminished, a current risk of AI implementation, the benefits of AI-enriched teaching and learning materials cannot be fully realized. Understanding the distinction between enriched and diminished learning experiences is an important first step toward mitigating AI's risks and harnessing its benefits in education. Another direct quote, and unlike the use of AI by adult professionals, when children use AI, it affects their cognitive and emotional development. The research shows that. So I just want, as a board, is this something that we're willing to address? Are we willing to talk about a resolution? Are we willing to say to our community that we prioritize pen and paper learning? Are we willing to say that we want to pull back non-educational uses of technology in our schools and make sure that these devices are actually promoting learning rather than distracting us? The whole point of the cell phone ban was to remove distractions in schools. And I will tell you my experience going to graduate school, having a computer, because it was not my experience as an undergrad. I had to stop taking it to class because I found over and over again that I kept wandering off to other things. And so when you're in a classroom and you see a bunch of kids playing games, which happens, is that appropriate use of technology? So I'm going to open up the floor to the rest of you because I would love to hear your opinions and if there's a support for a resolution to say to our community that this is something we want to work on as a board.
I would like to note, Director Tatum, that our staff is pursuing many, many, not studies, but many, many actions to address the use of AI, including professional development, including tracking, our very careful discovery of any program that's delivered digitally as an addition to our current curriculum. And we have processes both at the curriculum side. We heard, for example, about math at the high school level tonight. But we have very important processes to look at anything that goes into our classrooms, including the use of technology. We also have a technology department that follows those processes and literally takes things off of the district iPads and only approves those things that are on the iPads from the instructional point of view. So I do think we need to continue to study and to gather data about the use of not just AI, but the use of technology to supplement instruction. And I would support a resolution that might name some of the activities that are already going on, which Dr. Burke could certainly add, and propose maybe a couple of new ones to get the data so that we really know what's happening. We hear from parents, we hear from teachers, some identifiable uses of technology that we go, but you know, how prevalent is that? It's very difficult to tell. So I would support the resolution. I'd be happy to work with you on that.
I concur with Director Olson.
Bless you.
I am really concerned for our families and the stress that they are facing and the anxiety that this is producing very much with validity. And I just, I think all those things that Director Olson mentions are being done. However, I feel like this severity is not being appreciated enough at this point, and I know you mentioned, you know, those most important years, early grades. I actually feel both ends of the spectrum of our students who we are responsible for graduating, ready to, you know, be functioning, productive members of society wherever they go on, workplace, higher ed, et cetera. And I am really concerned with our high school level of how that's being balanced. And I also appreciate learning, our students learning about AI and being digital, what do we call it? Used to call it digital citizens, you know. And so finding that balance, but I do think more should be discussed, and I need more information. And I guess going back to your proposal, and maybe you said this and I missed it, the idea of a resolution is really to kind of signify moving forward with more in-depth analyses or?
So, you know, there have been various resolutions around the country, you know, some school boards just saying we're prioritizing pen and paper learning. We are going to prioritize reducing and removing screen use, you know, K2, screen time limits at 3-5, you know, and it's up to the district to present these things to us, right? Like, we're not saying we want exactly this, but these are our values. What do we value with our learners? And, you know, I appreciate, like, you need to learn AI, but I would also argue, as we heard researchers today, AI is a tool that is great when you have baseline knowledge, but elementary kids don't have that baseline knowledge, right? And so, like, why in elementary school are they using chatbots? I don't know that that's an appropriate use, and I don't know that you can argue that that's a developmentally appropriate use. But when you're talking about a junior or a senior in high school who's doing a research paper and they have read 20 articles and they want to feed that into an AI generator so that they can then help use that to synthesize their research, like that is, is that an appropriate use of AI? And so maybe that's part of the ask of the district too, like what is appropriate versus non-appropriate use of AI? Because we don't really have that. And, the letter we got, there was a 90-minute training for our educators in the beginning of the year on AI. Is 90 minutes enough time for it to be differentiated and broke down the levels of how it's used in elementary, how it's used in middle, and how it's used in high school? I'm not sure it is. And I asked that follow-up question that was not included in the board packet, but I hope those answers will be made available for the supplemental questions I asked, because there were also things in that letter about, getting data and screen time use. And I was kind of like, wait a minute, I thought we were told we didn't have the software to do that and that it was too big of an investment. And so I was really confused by that letter when it said, like, we're monitoring app use. I want that data if it exists. So as a board, like, do we want to say we want data on the benefits of each app? And, Mr. Cappy pointed out that information we were presented during one of our technology stakeholder groups that, the benefits of Dreambox and Lexia ended really at 4th and 5th grade. So why are we spending time with our students using it in 4th and 5th grade if the benefit is diminished? Like, that's the work that I want the district to undertake, to make sure that every use of technology has a return on the investment on the other side. And that we don't hear stories of, middle schoolers who can't write. And so the teachers are like, well, we'll just go back to all other assignments because the kids can't read even their own handwriting because it's not something they've practiced.
I want to go back to your suggestion of like a resolution or some, form of board action to sort of tackle this. My gut is that it already exists in the form of EL 4.7. And I would like to give the district another chance to report back on EL 4.7 to us in a public forum before we create a new thing for them to deal with. There has been a sustained 2-year request for pieces of data about the usage and efficacy of EdTech in our classrooms to this board, and no real opportunity to have a public discussion. And that public discussion is part of our job. That is what EL 4.7 is. We monitor the usage of technology. I saw in October or in August of last year, we were told about the Learn platform, and if someone wants to correct me, but we were told that data monitoring, a sort of a screen time, an enterprise level screen time was implemented on all of our school devices. To my knowledge, we haven't been presented with any reports. It's possible that EdTech stakeholder group was, but maybe it didn't float all the way up here. Okay, so I know that we have, to Shirley's point, taken steps to start better monitoring, but that monitoring data is not flowing all the way up to us. I feel like this is a group of parents and community members who want to hold this board accountable to evidence-driven action on technology, and I think they should do so. We work for them, and we work according to our policies, which call for monitoring. And when we adopt these policies, I know that we expect them to be followed. So we need to create space for the administration to give us that monitoring data that allows that allows these policies to be followed. We don't pick the curriculum, that's I wish I had not said that. We do pick the curriculum here. And like a lot of these board members, this curriculum picking thing is like mind-blowing to me, that the state of Oregon says we have to pick a new one every 5 years, whether it's working or not. That the state of Oregon, 7 years, the state of Oregon gives us a little list. I don't know if you guys have picked through the 7 available K-2 reading curriculums. All but 1 are intended to be delivered digitally. That's what comes to us as a board, and then we implement it. So the screaming into the void has to happen both here, but also to the Oregon Department of Education. It just has to. And we need a set of tools that will enable us to, make smart choices for especially our youngest students. especially our youngest students. And you know, we, we can only sort of, we have to act within the bounds of our, you know, of our abilities here. I think to Magic School, you know, that is a tough one for me. We say in our executive limitations that, you know, when we roll out technology, it needs to be evidence-based. I don't believe Magic School existed before August. And so I don't know how our use could have been evidence-based. This is a tough one for me to, you know, to sort of get on board with. So that to me feels like the most sort of explicit violation of that policy as written. And again, I would really like us as a board to get a chance to monitor that policy explicitly before we create some new thing for the district to deal with.
I also want us to consider the realities we're facing, I mean, financially, but also the investment, just like what you just mentioned, investment in our curriculum, which we are bound within certain parameters of what's available, but also our devices, right? And that's where these aren't going anywhere. So I think it's getting, I think what this resolution might be asking for some more supportive language in how the devices are used. But this is not about getting rid of iPads or getting rid of, you know, our curriculum that mostly is on our devices. And so how do we find that balance? And maybe that's what you're speaking to with this resolution.
No, absolutely. Like, but what is appropriate use, right? Because everywhere it says we define appropriate use, but we don't
grade
actually,
level.
but we
By
don't
grade
actually
level.
define what that is.
Right.
Like, where is that written? What appropriate technology use is? So as part of the resolution saying we want the district to give us in writing appropriate use of technology at every grade level. What do they deem as appropriate? What is developmentally appropriate?
Right.
You know, and that is something that educators alone can't be the only people deciding that, because developmentally appropriate means that you're also working with child psychologists, you're working with pediatricians, experts in child health, because it is so multifactorial. You know, our nursing team here had a presentation from a pediatric ophthalmologist who was saying, like, yeah, our youngest kids should not be reading on screens because it really damages their eyesight. But yet I was told that at one of our elementary schools, children have to take their iPads to the library to check out books, and they're now given the option of digital books. But if we know that reading on an iPad for a kindergartner is hard, why are they checking out digital books? Like, why are we allowing that, right? Because that seems like that goes against developmentally appropriate. And so those are the big conversations, like, what are we doing that we need to be having? And I think by saying that to the community, we're signaling that this is also important to us as an issue of, you know, long-term health for our kids. And when we have 1,100 families sign on to something, like, that's not insignificant when we have 18,000 students. That's a lot of families. I would have signed that letter if I was given it, but I'm a board member, so I did not sign that letter. But I can tell you, like, when I talk to families and when I say, like, what do you think about technology and use in our schools? I've never had a family say, I think we need more. And if any of you have had a family say they think we need more technology in our schools, I would love to talk to that family, because I'd be very curious, like, tell me more about that. And it's not to say that, like, a school like Juniper Elementary, they are the technology magnet school. Coding is part of their curriculum there. A school like Juniper, I would expect, would use more iPad time because they're doing that work. And as AI develops, then maybe there is a use that is developmentally appropriate and evidence-based in our schools, but those are things that would be vetted over time with research, and I just don't think we're there yet. I mean, I agree on Magic School. I think that was a mistake. Yeah.
So I think we all agree that something needs to be done and we need to work on this, and it's important. I agree that we need to look at getting more information and data and work with staff to try and figure out what it is, where are we, get our hands around it, and then work with staff to come up with some answers. So if that's what a resolution would do, I'm on board with that. If we can come up with a wording
Director,
for it.
did you consider just taking another look at the AR about appropriate uses of technology? Like, could we spend time just revising it again, rather than, like, starting from scratch with some new artifact?
Yes, and a resolution is a statement to our community that we want to do something about it, because all of these tools currently exist and we're not getting the information that we need from them. So that is the reason I'm suggesting a resolution. It kind of lights a little bit of a fire, like, this is important, this is work we need to do, and we expect that we're gonna see data on the financial efficacy of, you know, our apps, right? How are these tools chosen? Is it just people here, or do we want tools that are vetted by a larger group, like the wellness committee? You know, when we have a policy, for example, that comes through on caffeine, when I was like, you know, I'm really not comfortable selling energy drinks that have more caffeine than the American Academy of Pediatrics says a, you know, adolescent should have in a day. Why are we selling those in our schools? We didn't make that decision. It went to a committee. And, you know, the technology stakeholder group, when we said, like, we want this done, I thought that was going to be a place where conversations happened that were more interactive with the community, and we were listening to experts and vetting policies and through them, but that really hasn't been what that group has been, which I think was a disappointment of members in our community. And, you know, I want to see work done that is more collaborative, and we know where these decisions are coming from, and we get the financial viability of the things we are paying for. You know, like, one of my questions was, what is the cost of tech versus digital? We're spending a lot of money on software. We're spending $96,000 on textbooks, but we're spending $3 million on software. Like, I want to know more about that. Like, does that make sense?
Thank you, Director Tatum. I appreciate it. Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, I think, you know, folks have talked about the technology stakeholder group, and, you know, to Director Lynch's comments on who the board serves, right? We serve our constituents. And I would agree that I would like to revisit the tech stakeholder group. We have a lot of skilled and talented people in our community. And I think especially with the decreased rate of funding that we are receiving from the state, that our schools need to rely more on our community. And I would like, again, to revisit, reset, I don't know what it is, but what is the intention behind the stakeholder group? In my purview, I think it should be a place where there is engagement, there is dialogue both ways, and we do listen to these experts in their fields. I also think about the social emotional component for our children, especially our young children. And I think about the direct correlation of technology and the outcome of social emotional learning for our children. And so I think it's fair to say that the entire board, I mean, personally, I have a parent, I do have a parent, but I am a parent of a first grader. I don't like that he has an iPad. He doesn't have one at home. Neither of my kids, middle schooler and elementary, do not have iPads or phones at home at all. And there's a reason. And there's also a reason why Steve Jobs and Bill Gates did not let their children on computers. So I would definitely love to revisit and potentially reset where we go, especially with the stakeholder group.
Thank you. All right, so, go ahead, Kinsey, before I make my joke.
I just wanted to add, we are currently in review and revision process with a set of policies related to all things IT. Some of them are very technical, cybersecurity and drones is in there. And then appropriate use of technology is actually in that batch, and we're sort of midway through the process of just technical updates. That's definitely one we will take out for community feedback and engagement with. So just so you know, that one is in process and will come in front of you at some point. So before you have to do anything with it. So just a heads up.
Thank you. Going back to when you were last up here as well, can you just remind everybody how they can give that input?
Sure. So we have several different routes. The standard route, maybe the easiest route for people, is on our website where you find information about these board meetings. There is a link to our policy page, and on there you'll see something that says policies in revision. On that page, you'll see a list of all of the policies that are currently being revised or have been redrafted and are sitting out for feedback. And then there is a link to an actual feedback form where you can see the draft document, the new proposed language, any changes that we are proposing to make, and write feedback straight into the form. We take each and every one of those comments into account and review it, incorporate them as we are able. Other policies go through a much more in-depth community engagement process depending on the need and interest in those topics. This certainly is one that we have marked for a little more engagement than just the form on the website. So,
Thank you.
Janet, is that information that we can include in the board minutes so that it's more easily accessible to public where they can check out policies?
Yeah, that's in the board packet. It's also on
Right.
the agenda that was published on Friday. So, yeah.
and we do keep a note in the district spotlight about key policies and a link to the form as well.
All right. To bring a little levity to this, I didn't know we had an issue with A1, but anyway, steak sauce, yeah. Anyway, I think ultimately what we all are saying is that we do care about this, and it's something that's important to us. I think we do need to revisit the current ones we're looking at. I think what our constituents are asking for too is, can they get an update on certain things? I think that's the critical piece. I think I really like the idea from Director Chadwick in terms of the stakeholder group being a part of a lot of the solutions and stuff to be able to help us figure out what those steps look like, because we want to be able to do it at our next meeting to give people what we're doing and how is it coming. But at the same time, within that stakeholder group, also people have biases within that too, right? So we have to understand how we do eliminate some of those pieces as well. So what I'm saying is not just create a whole nother resolution, but at least give us what the stepping stones are going to be with the new policy, looking at it, how technology is done, so we can give the community, hey, here's what we're currently doing to make sure things are going to be okay. Or do we need the resolution to be able to push that to get going?
Well, I think that's what a resolution does, right?
Right.
It is making a statement that this is our values and this is important to us.
Okay.
And that we're asking for this information.
Well, if you want to start looking at a resolution, I'll definitely work on that with you. If there's another director who wants to jump on, that's great with me as well.
I think Director Olson and I would probably be good to work on it together because I'm feeling like we're maybe a little bit not on the same spectrum exactly. And I feel like that's how we're going to craft a good resolution that is balanced. Yeah, well, she said she volunteered. I didn't volunteer her. And like, I totally am sensitive to financial costs, right? Like, this is not something we can flip the switch on overnight because we have declining budgets, no money. But what can we do now for next year that's going to help our kids' brains, help them get smarter, help with pen and paper learning, all of that. And at our youngest grades, that's the easiest place for it to happen. But also commenting that things like Magic School, maybe that was a violation since it's not evidence-based. Like, when something like that comes up, it's hard as a board because is our only action to fire the superintendent, which is not what I want to do over something like that. So then how do we pull that back and say, actually, as a board, like, we're not sure this is evidence-based. Tell us what the evidence is, right?
And I do think that again, that EL 4.7 is our opportunity to do that. I think adding a EL 4.7 report to a future board meeting would give us the opportunity to address these questions. And then I know I've sent in a bunch via email that haven't yet been addressed. We can like go back and like take a look at those one more time. Yeah, the one I'm thinking of is the contracts. Remember there was a Ben Bulletin article 2 weeks ago that was like contracts that bound us to screen time, and I emailed in and asked like, do we have any things like that? I haven't heard anything yet, but would really like to.
An update in terms of a report for 4.7 is scheduled for May.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Does doing this in May give us time, if this board wanted to, we can't, the thing about a lot of this is that frankly, this board, not these humans, but this board did adopt Amplify Desmos and did adopt Really Get Reading. Like we did adopt a technology for focused curriculum. And I don't think anyone's, and iPads, yeah. I don't think anyone thinks we're gonna like try and pivot this in a month, but does May give us enough time to sort of like, you know, feel like we're working with you on a cadence that makes sense in the classroom?
I
Is
think
it too late? to do anything, or?
Well, at the very least, I think it could allow us to outline like a plan by that would have some dates associated with it. So I think that, and I'll talk about this in the SUBS report, but you know, I think the good news is from a district perspective, we're aligned with a lot of the things that our community is asking for. What is clear to me is the speed at which that has kind of moved forward has been, you know, in question, and that people are very unclear on what has been happening along the way. And so we have work to do regarding clarity, regarding a number of different things. So I don't think, you know, as a broad statement, from a district perspective, we're really opposed generally. Like we fall in this line where we want to do what's right for students as well. And we know our teachers and educators to be experts in this area as well. And I do believe, and I see them each day being very thoughtful about their use of technology. But what is clear is that there's such variance in our system that by us kind of codifying or sort of recognizing what are our standards, what are we going to train to, what are we going to make sure everybody knows, and what things do we not stand behind very overtly, that would help our educators as well. So I think that there are lots of areas where we can move in this zone, and it might not be all at once and make everybody, you know, glowing happy, but it will be a way that we can move forward in a way that kind of balances both what our community consistently is talking to us about, what research is saying, and what our teachers who are with our students every day are able to say, this is really what the experience is in my class and the choices that I make when I'm thinking about educational technology.
I really appreciate that, and I think too that the resounding agreement from our community has been that our teachers are absolutely doing the best they can. I haven't heard anybody, you know, I don't know. I've heard very, very, very little direct criticism of the way that our teachers are using technology, and I think that we all, I would hate for any of this conversation to be taken as our teachers are somehow falling down.
Absolutely.
That's
Like,
not what I'm hearing from the community in these forums.
No, and I don't think it's our teachers. Like, I think our teachers are doing the best they can with the tools that they have. And I've had teachers, I have a former teacher friend who said I would still be in the classroom if iPads had not been introduced, because she felt like they drove so much distraction. A high school teacher, she would still be teaching high school if iPads had not been entered into the classroom. So I think there are a lot of teachers that also see iPads as a potential harm. We heard from a former teacher today saying that. And so I think also making sure that we're really involving teacher voice and diverse teacher voice. Whenever I have a teacher as a patient, I always ask them, hey, what do you think about ed tech? And I've never had one say, I think we need more. I've had them say, it's really hard and a distraction. So, like, let's make sure we're actually incorporating all of our voices to.
And not to throw through too much gasoline on this anymore than we already did, but what is the number one disciplinary issue that we have currently right now in our schools? Kids getting in trouble for doing inappropriate stuff on iPads. So if we look at it from that perspective, what are we going to do? But also parents may not want me hear me say this, but there's also a parental side to this too. It's not just us as a board having to make a decision on iPads. There's a piece of that too. Don't forget, they have a responsibility to do this too. But I know what mostly you're talking about is early age kids. Early educational kids is what we're looking at, even middle school and high school as well, especially if that's something they've been doing since the pandemic. So I think ultimately what we're trying to say is let's give the system opportunity to be able to give us something back in May, to be able to do the things we need to do, but be specific in what we're looking for in terms of that data. And I think that working with you and Shirley to be able to do that would be essential. So thank you all for the discussion. We appreciate it. Thank you people who stayed and listened to what we're trying to do. Let you know we are working on trying to find the best possible way to make this happen, because we want everybody to have the best educational possible. And I want to do this because in value of time, because we have been here since 4 o'clock today. So I want to make sure that we can continue to keep going. Thank you all for this discussion. Appreciate it very much. And now we're going to turn it over to Dr. Burke to be able to go over the superintendent report.
All right, I will be brief, but I first just want to talk for a moment around the ed tech piece, because I do want to highlight that there is in many places, there is like violent agreement around what we hope for our students. And so I think that where maybe from a district perspective, we haven't, that maybe we've missed the mark or we need to kind of shore up is the recognition of how do we make that more public and visible for everybody to understand. I think that it's clear that we can make some alterations and kind of interrogate our practices around our K-2 learning and options. I also know that the degree to which those are used ed tech-wise in a K classroom and is in a young area, young age classroom is very limited. And again, I don't see that visible to our community. And so I want to be able to shine light on that and say, here's some accuracy, and be able to also respond to some of the stories that are very real experiences that our community has too, and say, help both our educators as well as our families be able to say, that doesn't line up. That's not what we said we were all for, or that's not a practice that I'm going to continue to use. I also just want to highlight the tremendous amount of work that has come from the group that works on this internally. So there are a number of folks that are engaged in these processes, again, somewhat unseen. Karen Rush and her team in the ed tech world have spent so much time digging through and considering all of the things that come to them consistently. And again, there's a lot of alignment, but again, it's about making that more visible and making our cadence of sort of making moves and changes more visible along the way. So I just want to put some kudos into the universe for somebody who's taking that on, as well as Scott McDonald and their team from more of the informational tech components. I also think that, and we've been interested in kind of retooling that stakeholder engagement and thinking about what is going to be the best space here, because it feels like it is not meeting what some folks are feeling like their interest is in terms of action in that space, nor is it really set up to have the depth of conversation that would be necessary for us to make some moves. And so I think that that's a sticking point that I think would be relatively low-hanging fruit for us to make some moves on. I think what would help our entire system is for us to also be able to confidently, identify and train to and expect, say, this is what we believe is acceptable use in any of these areas. That would help all of our educators, I believe. And I believe that there are some bright spots within our educators that we can say, what are the ways that you're using these well? And we can lean on that as a conversation there. I also want to give some praise and kind of openness to the topic of fundraising in our community. And as Kinsey brought up, and she has been engaged in a zillion different conversations over the past couple of years with a variety of different stakeholders. And we've learned a lot of really interesting things related to fundraising, and some things that are pretty obvious areas that we could, again, retool and sort of shore up in our practices. We've been told things like from some of our big business donors, like, I don't know. We just say yes to whoever comes to us first. Like we didn't even know that you had certain priorities. And so making those things more clear is helpful. Other things that sometimes our students are saying is like, I guess, I'm fundraising. I'm not quite sure what it's for, but making those things more clear are reasonable practices that we're excited to think about as we move forward. So some of those fundraising practices and what Kinsey said about the board policy would be, or board resolution policy would be helpful as we move forward in our community. The budget is something that, I outlined. I'm not going to hammer home those things, but that's a very real reality for where we are right now. And I just want to comment on Director Olson's comment where she was saying, "Oh, I was really bummed out about the short session," and I have to say, I was somewhat elated with the short session that we were not cut more than what we were said. So really, based on advocacy from a number of different groups, State School Fund was really held harmless, and so that is both good on one side because there's not additional cuts, but just a couple of months ago, it was, the governor's team talking about, okay, how are you going to just shave more and more and more? And so if we're able to hold harmless in a budget that we know is not adequate for what our needs are, I'm going to be stoked about that all day long. So there were a number of bills that passed in the short session. And so things that, pending the governor's signature, but things like policies when federal immigration authorities enter a public education property, that there needs to be some notification. Ensuring access to public schools for all students, so that means that regardless of immigration status, our students are able to receive public education. There were a number of technical fixes that kind of were technical in nature, but needed to be done. Cardiac emergency response plan that was passed, which just basically ups the ante for both service delivery as well as professional development on making sure that people are qualified to use the tools that would save lives. Codifying McKinney-Vento into Oregon law, that passed, and that's a really big deal for students who are experiencing homelessness. Attendance and chronic absentee data and reporting, that was increased and passed. And then a play-based learning piece passed. Bills that didn't pass but may affect us into the future is a comment about our quality education model. So QEM, if you recall, that's something that that Oregon has really talked about as like, we would need X amount of dollars to have this quality education model. And they were hoping to kind of retool that, and that did not advance. That continues to be something that is of interest, but didn't advance this time. Class size as a mandatory subject of bargaining did not advance. That will continue to be something that likely comes up. And then some things around student discipline, essential skills, just making sure that basically requirements of school districts around these different topics, and that also did not pass. So the moral of the story is advocacy works, and it is very helpful in our legislature, and we've made some partnerships there that have sort of maybe lessened the blow that is very obviously coming to really all educational, but really service industries across our state. So that was all good news. And then finally, I just want to celebrate a couple of things, which is we have some upcoming family evenings that are like Asian American Night. Some things that are like into May that are a variety of different family opportunities for connection. We had more participation in some of our Black History Month activities than we have in the past. And then also another sort of funny celebration is that, if you recall, we moved to Final Forms as an athletic tool, and that has gone really well. So we're hearing really good positive things, and that's not a space where you often hear positive things. And so we were happy to be able to bring that forward. So that is my report.
Thank you, Dr. Berg. Appreciate it very much. And now we're going to move to director's comments, and I'm going to start with Director Olson.
Nothing further at this time.
Thank you, Director Olson. Director Lynch.
Oh, I'm gonna talk. I know you want to go home. I had the unbelievable joy of attending a first robotics competition this weekend in Salem. Mountain View's High Desert Droids were there, along with Summit's Chaos Theory and the Mystic Biscuits from our Cascade Academy here in town. And I know I'm biased, but holy crap, Summit's team was just unbelievable. So jaw-dropping. Scored the maximum points that is possible to score, left that with a #1 rank, and is cruising towards their next competition in 2 weeks. This is like the most special applied learning thing. Having my ninth grader show up, showing me the like CAD he was working on to, you know, attach something to the something else. It's like learning your cat's a mechanical engineer. It's very strange. And I am so grateful to this district for supporting those programs. I hope we can expand them. I strongly encourage everyone to watch one of these things on YouTube when it goes live. And there'll be 24 of them all over the globe starting this weekend. Watch them with your kids and get involved with robotics when you get to high school.
Thank you, Director Lynch. And Director Talton?
Well, I got to go to Lapine High School today and meet with a careers class, so that was fun. And in addition to talking about careers, then I put on my school board hat and just asked them for some feedback on what's going on. And got some great feedback, some comments about several topics, including standards-based instruction and grading, et cetera. So I'm going to be following up with some of those with some of the staff. So, but it's good to see the class very engaged and interested in what's going on. So.
Thank you, Director Tomlin. Director Chaput?
I just wanted to thank Anna, Kelsey, and Daisy for attending tonight, our Student Voice Council, and also really also wanted to give a shout out to Chair LeGrand and all your effort in elevating Black voices, especially during Black History Month. Many of the programs were phenomenal. If folks didn't have an opportunity to see Ijeoma Oluo, if you can get a hold of the recording, you will be grateful that you did. It was a phenomenal talk. And just, yeah, I really want to thank our community members who came tonight and who have continuously pushed our school district and our board to do better. I really appreciate that. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Director Chadwick. Director Fisher?
No comment, thank you.
Director Tom? oh my God. Hey, Director Tatum?
Tatum, you can call me whatever you want. I'm
Tatum.
good. Yeah, we're tired. We want to go home. I'm just going to do a very quick shout out. March is Music in Our Schools Month, and our music programs are so important and really engage kids. I've seen it with my son, and I just want to shout out the fabulous Sarah Owen at High Desert Middle School. I am so thankful for the passion she has instilled in my son with the tuba, and he wants to go and do 2 electives next year in band. He wants that to be all he does. So I love it. We support music in our schools.
Thank you, Director Tatum. I appreciate it very much. Sorry about fubbing your name. Thank y'all for letting me be gone for last month. I did have 8 events for Black History Month. Thank you, Director Chadwick, for actually shouting me out on that. I definitely thank Kenzie and her team for the door competition. That means a lot. All those middle schools, high schoolers, and elementary schools did a great job of being able to put up all displays. And even here in the building, I've seen a few as well. So that tells me that we are really concerned about and care about education. I really appreciated that. I want to thank Director Tatum for holding down the fort in the chair seat while I was gone. Thank you very much. Give her some love for that. Appreciate it so much for doing that. But lastly, this is Women in Heritage Month, so please make sure that you are celebrating that as well, because without women, we don't exist. So let's want to make sure that we give them their flowers this month, right? So just want to make sure that happens. But ultimately, I want to thank y'all for just continuing to push one another to do great work in our district. And I want to thank Dr. Burke for her great leadership in this as well today. Thank you, Janet, as well. And thank everyone here tonight. Thanks to the team in the back also. Our next meeting was going to be a budget committee meeting, which is March 17th, followed by another meeting on the 31st, which is a work session after we come back from spring break. But our next scheduled business meeting is going to be April 14th. This meeting now is adjourned. Whew. Yeah, we're all in the back.
On the side.
Oh, you're on the side. I think most of
Hello, everyone. We are here tonight to recap tonight's board meeting. I'm Lisa Burke, the Deputy Superintendent for Ben Lapine Schools. Our board meeting was called to order at 5:30, and following the Pledge of Allegiance, we had a review of agenda where Director Tatum added one discussion topic that was added to the discussion near the end of the agenda. District recognitions went to Kelly Sproba, who is a special education teacher for Lava Ridge Elementary School. And so it was fun to see her here and help celebrate the greatness that she pumps into that school. We had student representatives today of Anna Boudry, Daisy Chavez, and Kelsey Farrell representing Caldera and Ben Senior High School. They talked a little bit about their most recent meeting that covered a couple of different topics, one being standards instruction and grading, standards-based instruction and grading rather, and also the kind of weigh-in of the use of a 0.5 scale as well as considerations toward dual credit and high school options, as well as decaying average alterations. So those are all topics that they are engaged in, seeking information, and adding to our kind of stakeholder involvement. They also met to